Me.
You good, Megan? All right, I'd like to call to order the Wednesday, August 10th, 2022 session of the Long Hill Township Committee. Madam Clerk, will you read the standard statement or whatever you read?
In compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act of New Jersey, adequate notice of this meeting, specifically the time, date, and public call and information were included in the meeting that was electronically sent to the Echo Sentinel and posted on the Township website. The agenda and public handouts for this meeting can be viewed online at www.longhillnj.gov. A public comment period will be held in the order it is listed on the meeting agenda.
Thank you. Please, everybody rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Madam Clerk.
Committeeman Lavender,
Present.
Committeeman Ray,
Present.
Committeeman Verleza,
Present.
Deputy Mayor Pasurcia,
Present.
Mayor Dorsey.
Here. All right, we'll take some things out of the first. We have Lisa, you here? Lisa's here. I remember we did this back in the winter. We have our photo contest winners. Lisa was running a contest for a few months now, and she'll announce the winners.
Oh, yep.
Thanks. Good evening, everybody. I'm Lisa Scanlon, Parks and Recreation Director, and I thank you for letting me kick things off. We ran a Spring Fever photography contest starting in March, and we ended it June 30th, and we got some really pretty photos in. This is the second time we've run a photography contest, and we have a lot of talented photographers in town, and it's nice too because a lot of their photographs can be used then to be displayed in our town calendar on the website, and they've been on display near the Recreation Department for quite some time. We announced 4 winners. I have already communicated with those 4 winners and asked them to come out tonight. I believe 2 of the folks are here. Lynn, I see you, Lynn Vreeland and Charles Arenowitz. I don't believe the Belfields are here, right? Okay. All right. If I could, I'd love for them to come up and present them with their awards. We had some special things made for them with their photographs, their winning photographs.
Do you want to show them?
Sure, can you pop that up? I sent you some new files. Did one of them work? Maybe?
It should. Oh, wait, hold on one second. There we go.
Okay. That would be Aileen Belfield. And that's a pretty picture of a dogwood in bloom. Are you able to advance?
Hold on. Yep, just give me 2 seconds. Saying can't open, so.
Oh, okay. Well, I have large copies of them up here. But we also had, and I don't know if you're going to see this at all. You wouldn't see this, right?
See what?
On TV?
I'm going to try and pull them up.
Okay. So, but these are the other ones. And if I could, I'd like to ask both Lynn and Charles to come up and present them with their awards.
want to show the picture, I could get all 4 of them up
Well,
as a presentation.
there they all are. So you can see the tulips in the upper left corner. That was Charles's submission that won. And to the right of that is Lynn's submission that won. So hopefully we'll be seeing more of these photographs. I thank you for the time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, something I forgot to mention up front, and it's apropos that there's so many people from Myersville here tonight. Michelle Urbanski passed away in June. Michelle she's lived in Myersville since 1963. Her family, her and her husband and both her sons worked at the Trading Post, which some of the younger people don't remember. It was directly behind where Casa Mai is now, as an antique store. Michelle was on the Township Committee from 1995 to 2000. And she was integral in the tree lighting ceremony when it first started 20 years ago or so. And she's a member of the Myersville Grange. So Michelle had Myersville running in her blood. And it's like take a moment of silence in honor of Michelle Urbanski. Thank you. All right. We noticed most of the people, a lot of the people here today, there's a topic we started a month ago, and it was carried to this week. It was a gun range. It was Mr. Senamore in Myersville. Those of you who don't know, I'm excusing myself from the meeting. My law firm, Mr. Senamore's consulted us for some legal issues in the past about land use stuff. So I'm recusing myself. I'm going to turn the meeting over to the deputy mayor, and then he'll take over my spot, and when it's over, I will return. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. So I'll give some context. What we'll do tonight regarding the gun range application, I will ask Township Council Jack Pigeon to describe the ordinance that applies to gun range applications in the township. Then, I don't see Bobby, but Bobby Senamore, I think he's out there somewhere. Bob, if he wants to explain the application, I know he explained it at the last meeting, but there weren't as many people. I don't think it was as well known what the application was at that time. Then I will go in order of some organizations that I know are present. I see someone from the Great Swamp National Wildlife Refuge, George Molnar. I see the executive director from the Great Swamp Watershed Association, Sally Rubin. I see the owner and operator of our beloved Raptor Trust, Chris Susi. I was told somebody from Garden State Fireworks would be here, but I don't necessarily see that person. And any other organization will go there. And then we will allow members of the public, perhaps, if it's not clarified by that point, to speak. Please try to be as brief as possible, because there's quite a few people here. And then for the residents, or anyone really, who is attending via Zoom.
There's people with their hands up.
There are people with their hands up already. And that's a good point, Megan. If you want to speak via Zoom, just put your hand up now. Don't wait until you want to speak. And then, oh yeah, and I think I left out one organization, I suppose, the owner of the Great Swamp Greenhouse, Michael Beneduce, and I think council are here. They will speak right after Bob Sentimore. So that's the order we're going to go into. Please be respectful of whomever is at the mic, and because in return they will be respectful towards you. All right, so Jack, if I could ask you to explain the ordinance that applies to gun range applications.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor. In 1967, the township adopted firearms regulations. The sections that are relevant to this discussion tonight were last amended in 1973. So 49 years ago, these sections, I'm sorry, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Sorry, I'll start from the beginning. In 1967, the township adopted firearms regulations. The sections that are relevant to our discussion tonight were last amended in 1973. So they've been on the books for the last 49 years. And I'll read those sections that are relevant to this discussion. First of all, it prohibits firearms in certain areas of town. And then it goes on to say that the provisions of those sections shall not be construed to limit the discharge of a firearm or other weapon or device capable of discharging projectiles by means of compressed air or spring tension in connection with a target behind which there exists a backstop, or firing range, either natural or artificial, which has been approved by the Township Committee as hereinafter provided. Then later in the ordinance in section 3-7.5, the ordinance sets forth the application process. And as I said, that was adopted in 1967 and last amended 49 years ago. It provides that the applicant for an initial approval shall file an application with the township clerk on a form provided by the clerk and shall provide thereon information describing the firing range, target and/or backstop in such detail as to provide an adequate basis for judging its safety. Then going down to subpart 2D, the application shall be forwarded by the township clerk to the chief of police, who shall cause the range or target area in question to be inspected and shall report thereon to the township committee. And the final section that's relevant is the township committee shall thereafter approve or deny the application based upon its determination as to whether the safety of the public, nearby property owners, and property and users of such ranges shall be assured. So that's the ordinance in a nutshell, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. And to put it in language that I understand, and that's not to patronize the public, the Township Committee is the authorizing body.
That's correct. The clerk accepts the application, forwards it to the police department for their inspection and report, which is then submitted to the Township Committee, which has the ultimate authority to approve or deny the application.
And that last point, the inspection and report, exactly are they inspecting, and what will the report contain?
Well, it should have those things required by the ordinance, information describing the firing range, target and/or backstop in such detail as to provide an adequate basis for judging its safety. And then, like I said, it goes on to say the Township Committee shall base its decision on whether the safety of the public, nearby property owners, and property and users of such ranges shall be assured.
Who outlines the safety regulations?
That would be the police department.
But do they adhere to state guidelines?
They should, because any facility like this would be subject to state guidelines, any applicable state guidelines.
They would have to be met?
Yes.
So distance that a rifle or a gun would be shot would require certain safety measures?
Well, there are hunting regulations, but this ordinance also does have some safety measures earlier in the ordinance. And I'll read that for you as well. No person shall discharge any firearm across any state, county, or municipal street, and no person except the owner or lessee of the property, and person specifically authorized by him in writing, shall have in his possession a loaded firearm while within 450 feet of any occupied dwelling in the township of Long Hill or within 450 feet of a school playground.
Okay, and I think as we hear some testimony tonight from various folks, it'll become clear how we arrived at this point in time. So I know, Township Committee, you will get a chance of, obviously, to discuss this, but are you okay if we just proceed?
No? Yeah.
And have Mr. Sanamore come up if he so chooses?
Mhm.
Bob Centimore, 651 White Bridge Road. To address concerns related to public safety, I would like to state openly and publicly that the safety of this community, which includes myself and my family, is of top priority and of extreme importance to me. I also respect the decision of this committee and each one of you, and I ask that the same courtesy is extended to me today, respectfully. I would also like to address many concerns that I have read, heard, and seen over the past month since a decision was rendered in my favor by this committee. The communications are unfortunately retaliatory, menacing, and harassing, and threatening to the safety of myself and my family. Since its decision was rendered merely 1 month ago, it has unfortunately been an eventful month. A misleading article that has incited public fear, labeling my property as a shooting range, was published. Mailings were dispersed throughout Long Hill Township beyond the 200-foot radius required, inciting fear. An email group was formed handing out flyers with non-factual statements and comments that constitute defamation of character and smeared all over social media regarding this application. Most recently, the police were sent to my property for a shooting complaint. I was not in town, but I was blamed for the incident openly and publicly on social media. The fact that I'm being profiled and stigmatized is an injustice to me, to say the least. I've been a member of this community for 44 years and was a member of the Sterling Fire Company for 15 years. To clear the air, a major contribution to this issue is the discourse being misused in this case. I, Bob Centimore, petitioned the town to request a personal target shooting permit to shoot on my property responsibly, ethically, and with the safety of others in this community being the highest importance. I took the time to do due diligence to ensure that proper distances and all ordinances were adhered to, with no intent to jeopardize public safety and the wildlife refuge. The committee rendered a decision in my favor because there are no safety issues as per the ordinance. The term written throughout communications stating that I am operating a shooting range on my property is misleading. The discourse used, namely shooting range, implies that it will be availed to public and descriptively appears to be haphazard, as anyone would presume by hearing that title. To be very clear, I would not be operating or soliciting to operate a commercial or public shooting range. I was merely seeking legal permission to use a firearm on my property for target shooting. As per the last committee meeting and the article in the Echo Sentinel, this was very clear. This has become overly political in nature and is a misuse of time and resources. To the individuals that have trespassed on my property, written articles, and made petitions with preposterous accusations of diminishing property values and effects to quality of life from me shooting at my house 1 time a month, I ask you to stop and to extend the same respect and courtesy as I do you. Due to these unforeseen and formidable circumstances pertaining to the public not knowing all the facts in this matter, false accusations, and jumping to conclusions, I respectfully rescind this application.
Thank you, Bob. So at this point, what I'm going to do is ask the mayor to come back in. We are going to continue discussing how we reached this point this evening. But I'll let the mayor, I don't think the mayor is required to recuse himself any further. So we'll go to the owner of the Great Swamp Greenhouse, or whomever he chooses to come up and speak on his behalf.
Why are we doing that, guys? Because there's no longer an application before us.
There may no longer be an application, but it is clear that the Township Committee did not authorize the gun range from the beginning. We did not receive the plans as to the safety of the range that was used. And as a result of that, I do agree with Mr. Centimore. I think another member of the public on a property that was nearby started using guns. I don't know why, but I'm assuming he felt if somebody else near him can use them, he could use them. So I think it's very important that the public understand exactly how we got here. The Township Committee never deliberated it. The first time we knew about this gun range is when we received a complaint from a resident. And I want to be clear, but this committee did not authorize that gun range. Matt?
Where are we now? Oh, who is it, Ms. Voigt? Ms. Voigt, you can come on up. Yeah,
It's been rescinded.
that's fine.
There's nothing
No,
to talk about.
It's not over. Go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'll attempt to keep it brief. You clearly have a very full agenda this evening.
You got to speak into the mic. Thank you.
I'll attempt to keep it brief. You clearly have a full agenda this evening. I just want to touch on a few very important points with respect to this. First of all, I just have to... My name is Nicole Voigt. I'm here on behalf of Great Swamp Greenhouses. I'm an attorney at law. I specialize in land use and zoning business and such applications.
Slow down a little bit. Okay.
The application of Mr. Centimore is signed by him, and it is clearly was an application for a shooting range. So I don't understand much of the comment that was just made. The form clearly says it's for a range, and he has signed it. I want to encourage this committee to consider amending its ordinance to require more. It's very important to note that the zone did not permit this, so a zoning variance would have been required. Your site plan applicability would have applied. So the site plan applicability standards would make this a major development, and site plan review would have been required for this as well. It was commenced and begun with construction of a berm. Now, the plan that was submitted to you is quite honestly something I think I could have drawn with my left hand on a paper towel. Far from a site plan application, and it indicates that the shooting was going to be in the direction of a swamp. So even if this is changed to a personal shooting whatever, which isn't clearly in your ordinance, it's important to note that this is a wetland. If you look at New Jersey's GeoWeb, this is located within a wetland. So it appears that a berm has been constructed near a C1 stream within a wetland. So this is all very much a concern that needs to be taken a look at, because it may be an ongoing condition of noncompliance in its current state. And it's my understanding that it is not the only possible noncompliance at the property. So, you know, with all due respect, it does appear that this entire thing proceeded asking for forgiveness and not permission. Then a application for a range was filed, and now it's being withdrawn under the heat of scrutiny. In addition to site plan applicability and zoning applying, it's very important to note that the police officer who reviewed this applied the Commission's outdoor firearms range facility standards. Now, according to those standards, it appears that even a much more substantial berm would have to be built within this wetland in order for this to be safe, including side berms. So whatever standards were allegedly looked at, I don't know what they weren't cited. The only standards in the record would have required much more consideration for safety with respect to this range. Also, there's a known lead hazard associated with this, and again, this is near a C1 stream and within a wetland. Those standards also require that any such range have considerations of firing lanes, sound system, a communication system, lighting. You need to be able to amplify the human voice. There's supposed to be toilet facilities and parking, a storage shed, emergency vehicle access, all aspects of site planning. So the range, the ordinance as it's currently written should really be clarified, removed, edited, something to affect.
That's at a future meeting.
Okay, very good. So in addition to that, of course, there is the concern of whether or not there's active violations occurring on this property, and certainly nobody who has active ongoing violations not in compliance with zoning, whether it be possibly the parking of commercial vehicles in non-compliance with zoning, construction of a pole barn without permits, or constructing a berm within a wetland buffer. It's very important, or within actual wetlands, if that may be the case as it appears on GeoWeb, it's very important that a person who is not in compliance with your ordinances not be permitted to Gun ranges occur on land, and land is subject to site plan applicability and standards. Excuse me?
Ms. Voigt, you can continue, please.
So I just wanted to, encourage you to keep these matters in mind. Should another application come to you in the near future, it's very important to note the site plan applicability, zoning, safety and concerns, and the natural constraint resources that exist on this property. Now, if we had more time in this, we're actually proceeding, I'd want to show you the maps that we have of those environmental constraints and so forth. Clearly, it's not necessary. So at this point, do you have any questions for me?
Do you know how this originally got approved?
I can invite my client to also come up and speak to this, but my understanding is that the entire process is that it should have come before the committee with a recommendation from your police department, but that instead a recommendation or some sort of a review by the police department resulted in it being considered approved. I don't want to mischaracterize anything with respect to the police department. I don't have personal knowledge of that, but it's my understanding that basically this did not happen in the proper order or come before you in the way that it should have, as per your ordinance, which is a pretty plain read. We were able to cover it in all of a minute.
How did you find our ordinance?
I go on to eCode 360. It's very easy. I just look online. Your website has a link to the ordinance, and then we take a look at the ordinances and see what applies.
You don't need attorney code or anything to get on that, correct?
Not at all. In fact, my client, Mr. Beneduce, was able to bring it to my attention. Even though I routinely do this work, he was able to provide me with that code reference. It's quite easy. And my experience as well is that any municipal zoning officer would be more than happy to direct any person who's interested in doing something in any township to relevant code provisions.
All right, so basically my question is, not knowing a simple person, not knowing anything about the law or legal, if they go on the township website, you can look up ordinances. Can you search by words or things like that?
Yes, quite easily. There's a search engine in municipal ordinances. I believe you use eCode 360. It's quite simple. At the very top, you could put in any sort of a search term on this. If I were searching on an application like this, I would look for firearms, shooting, guns. If I knew my property or a swamp, as he's indicated on his plan, I might look for, natural resource constraints and so forth.
Okay, so I just want to make sure you didn't require any special training or legal law or law school ability to find these ordinances?
Not in my opinion.
Thank you. I believe, do you have anything else you want to add, Ms. Voigt?
No, I do not.
Thank you. Guy, who is the next speaker?
The owner of the Great Swamp Greenhouse.
That's fine.
Oh, that's his attorney.
No, he's there. But
Good evening, Michael Beneduce, owner of Great Swamp Greenhouses. I think it's been said, it kind of got reversed here. I appreciate Mr. Senmore rescinding it. It should have come to this board first. This board was not aware of it until I hired an attorney, and that brought it to light. I called several times the police department while he was shooting. I met with Mr. Senmore, and he said he would not shoot while I was open. I tried to work with him. He gave me his word. He went back on his word. Memorial Day, shot for 5 hours. Called the police department. They responded. The officer said that they continued to shoot and said that he was told not to stop him.
Wait. When the officer showed up, you called the officer, obviously responded. You explained to him or her what was going on.
Yes,
The
I said,
officer
I asked.
Explained to you what?
I asked, why are they still shooting? I said, my lawyer looked into it, and it's supposed to come before the board. And he said that his hands were tied. He was told to allow it to continue.
Did you find out who told the officer this? I don't think it was Mr. Senmore, was it?
I don't know who told him.
Okay.
I have no idea. That was the answer I got. About a week later, they were shooting again. I called the police department and asked, please have Police Chief Naga give me a call directly. He did so. I said, I don't see that it's gone before the board. How is this being permitted? He said it will come before the board, but he was under the impression that he had the authority. They must have changed the ordinance.
The ordinance from 1960-something?
Correct. And that was the answer that I got, that there wouldn't be any more shooting until it came before this board. If you can imagine, I have a parking lot of, I'm less than 750 feet, my property line from Mr. Senamore's. These are thousands of rounds of ammunition going off. You can hear them miles away. There's literally thousands of rounds going off. You can hear them from miles away. It's not just the sound. There is no guarantee that he can give you that an errant shot wouldn't end up. It can travel 2 miles. No one's even discussed that. It can travel as far, 223 or 556 can travel as far as Valley Road. These are facts, okay? I have customers that grabbed their children and ran into their cars when they heard the amount of shooting going on. That's why I'm here. I'm a gun owner myself. I have pistols, rifles, shotguns. I go to a range and shoot. This is not the place for it. It adversely affects my business, and this is the reason why we're here today. And I thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett.
Thank you.
The opportunity, I think, for the National Wildlife Refuge to speak, the Great Swamp Watershed Executive Director, or the Raptor Trust owner. Mr. Mayor, it looks to me like they have been satisfied.
So it appears this,
There-
oh, yes, ma'am. I can't see.
Yeah, I apologize, Pam. Yeah,
Go
and
ahead.
so next, Mr. Mayor, what I did explain in the beginning, we would go to members of the public.
Okay, sure. All right, come on up, Ms. Hodgins.
Pamela Ogens. Is this on? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I think so, not too, can you put it down closer to you?
Okay. Okay. I'm not that short. Thanks, Megan. Pamela Ogens, The Crescent in Millington. I would like it so noted that on the 13th of July, a member of this township committee did vote to approve this application. Since 1973, there's been a lot of work done about environmental impact of gunshot. I encourage Township Committee to look into what the US EPA has done since then, specifically EPA 902-B-01-001. Not that you need to know that, but it was also revised in June. In closing, because I know I have 3 minutes, the Township Land Use Code 123, titled Prohibited Uses, has been referenced tonight. Land Use LU 123-3 states the following, and I am not a lawyer, I am a healthcare worker retired. The following uses are specifically prohibited in all zone districts of the township. This property in question is in the conservation zone. Included in the list of prohibited uses is golf driving ranges, except as permitted in the BD Downtown Valley Commercial Zone District. This township committee was considering, and one of your members approved, permitting a firearm shooting range. I apologize if that's not specifically what was on the application, while prohibiting, in writing, in land use ordinance, a golf driving range. I urge the Township Committee to initiate the process to add firearm shooting ranges to LU 123 as a prohibited use in all zones in Long Hill Township. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pam.
What's my name?
Yeah, just say your name for the record.
My name is Mary Ann Noonan, and I live at 110 Lackawanna Boulevard in Gillette. I just want to make one comment, just one observation. The applicant came up and he completely rescinded his request. Subsequent to that, it appeared as if people were given testimony. I'm asking that you please redact anything with regards to that, because again, the applicant, he did rescind. So, in terms of giving testimony, that's all that was being given. It was not necessary, and I truly hope that that is redacted.
Thank
Any
you, Mr.
questions?
Take that under advisement, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else on the topic of the... Haven't seen you in a long time, Mr. Ferrandino. Brooklyn in the
I
house.
hope you missed me.
Brooklyn.
Joe Ferrandino, 623 Chestnut Street. Correct me if I'm wrong, but there is a gun range for our police department in this township, is there not?
Yes, sir.
Does that police gun range have the same berm as Mr. Centimore put on his property?
I don't know, I've never been there.
Are Mr. Centimore's property rights rescinded because of the Great Swamp? Is the Great Swamp actually on his property?
You have to check with Mr. Centimore.
Okay, I'm just inquiring because you know my feeling on property rights. And the fact that Long Hill Township has gotten away from its humble beginnings. When I talk to people that lived in this town forever, shooting a gun in your backyard was not something you would call the police on, all right? Especially if you went through the trouble to put a barrier, a berm, to make sure that the gunfire didn't affect anybody adversely. Yes, it's very disturbing in this day and age to hear gunfire, but when I go to ShopRite, I hear the range when the police are qualifying at the range, so there is still gunfire. Also, as far as lead ammunition goes, where does that berm and the subsequent ammunition shot into it wind up? Because I know there's a whole bunch of creeks and rivers and so forth all around this town. So for that issue alone, that it's going to affect the wildlife refuge adversely, I would question that. All right? And my thing, you know me, I wish you would have took the $800,000 you bought that piece of junk down the block for and put the gun range where that used to be the thermoplastic place. That, I think, would have been a great idea. But that's just me. Thank you very much for your time.
Good to see you.
Thank you, Joe.
Anybody else on this topic? All right, moving along.
There are two people
Oh, two.
on
Oh,
Zoom
online,
that would
sorry.
like to make a public comment. So Amy, I'm going to allow you to talk. Amy, if you could unmute yourself. Nancy, do you want to do the presentation button? Amy, if you want to unmute yourself. The presentation button. Amy, if you could unmute yourself. I'm going to remove the permission to talk and allow Gary Pratt to speak.
Okay.
Mr. Pratt, if you could unmute yourself.
Yep. This is Gary Pratt, 69 Lackawanna.
Gary, could you hold on 1 second? We're going to turn up the volume.
Turn up the volume, Mr. Pratt.
Okay.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
A little more, Megan.
Little
Yes, Mr. Pratt, it's better.
Okay. My concern about...
Wait, hold on, Mr. Pratt, hold on 1 second, please.
Okay.
Is that okay?
There was feedback, so we don't know. Gary, could you say something?
Yep. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
There you go, Gary.
All right, we good to go?
Good to go.
Yes. Okay. I just wanted to take issue with Mr. Centimore's statement about the comments that people were making. I just want to remind the public and also just based on the way that the agenda is for this meeting, we as residents of this township have a right to express our opinions. As long as we're not saying things defamatory about Mr. Centimore himself, we have a right to have concerns about the Great Swamp, have concerns about the enjoyment of our property, and to also talk about whether a gun range is something that we want in the township. So I just want to make it clear that people have a right to express their opinions and not be criticized because of that. And I thank the Township Committee for reconsidering this, and as was suggested by the first speaker, it appears that the ordinance, which is quite old, I think it would be important, even though the current application has been rescinded, that that ordinance be updated to make the process clear. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Thanks, Mr. Pratt.
Thank you.
Megan, there was a woman you said that wanted a question? There was Amy, you said?
If anybody, it looks like she lowered her hand. If anybody else on Zoom would like to make a public comment, please raise your hand. I don't see anyone there.
Thank you. All right. Megan, what's the next topic we have?
The ordinance.
Ordinances. Here we go.
Well, just to kind of wrap up on
Go ahead,
that,
Scott.
I do think we need to revisit the ordinance. It's a 50-year-old ordinance. We had a process failure that got us to a point which was disturbing to a lot of folks on both sides. I think we need to put that on the agenda in the future. We need to relook at this. A lot has changed over the last 50 years.
I totally
That's
agree.
all. You agree?
Yes. Oh, yes. This will be on like the agenda in September. It's already planned.
Yes.
Okay, good, thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else? Oh, I think it's something. All right. So we're moving on to ordinances. Ordinance 496-22, first reading. Jack, can you tell us what this is? This is the one I can't participate in, correct?
Yes, this is an ordinance that was drafted in large part by Mr. Sandow, the chairman of the planning board, and in part, it makes it possible for assisted living facilities to be built on Valley Road.
Mayor, if I could jump in, there was a section that we added.
Yes.
And unfortunately, when I published it, I didn't put that section in. So it's section 4. Section LU 1222.6 is further amended by adding a new paragraph E entitled, which reads as follows. E, emergency medical services. All assisted living facilities, continuing care residential communities, and nursing homes shall make emergency medical services available to or arranged for residents requiring these services. Each such facility shall develop a written plan for arranging for emergency transportation of residents at the facility's sole expense for medical care and returning them to the facility.
And if I just may add, I took that language from the State Department of Health regulations, so it's clearly an enforceable provision.
All right, so I'll excuse myself for this for the conflict reason, correct?
Just doing it in that
Yes.
order?
Yes. No, we're number 5 here.
496.
We're introducing.
We're introducing, I'm sitting out of
Yeah,
this.
but we skipped the 5 is my point.
No, that's what we're on.
That's what we're on.
That's what we're on. So I'm,
Oh, no.
sorry.
Yeah, that's, you don't have a conflict for this one.
Oh, I don't, okay.
That's what I thought.
This is amending the Valley Road zoning.
Oh, correct. Yeah, but we're not up to there.
No, we're not there.
No.
Yes. See, emergency.
The mayor has a conflict on ordinance 498-22.
Okay.
Yes, this is the beginning of it.
All right, so this is the first reading.
Motion to move
Gotcha. Thank you,
496-222.
Is there a second? Brendan made a motion. Is there a second on this to move it forward? Thank you.
I got you.
Madam Clerk.
Sorry, Mayor.
Oh, I don't know what
Committeeman
you're
Lavender?
talking about.
Yes.
Committeeman Ray?
Yes.
Committeeman Verleza?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Pasurchia?
Yes.
Mayor Dorsey?
Yes. All right,
And that
497.
will be considered for final passage and adoption at a public hearing on Wednesday, September 14th.
Okay, 497-22, it's a first reading introduction. I know we talked about this for a couple meetings. It's amending the property maintenance codes in town.
And if I note, Mayor, since the last meeting, at the direction of the Township Committee, I added a provision saying that grass cannot be more than 5 inches high. And I tried to make it so that it's enforceable, that it has to be, front yard grass has to be can't be more than 5 inches high, and any side and rear yard grass is visible from either the street or neighboring properties. Because if you've got 20 acres, it doesn't necessarily all have to be mowed.
Is that typical, Jack? It doesn't sound, I mean, I know it's not going to be appealing from the street, but that doesn't sound that high. Is 5, I mean, I
Well,
don't,
that's the number the Township Committee told me. You
I
wanna make it
understand
10
that.
inches, Again,
Do you have any experience with other towns?
I have experience mowing lawns.
What's that?
He has experience cutting lawns.
Yeah, 5 inch, I mean,
When does it become so unsightly as to be
5
frustrating?
inches does seem low, I agree.
I had a problem with 5-inch lawn. It's not that high.
Right.
Yeah.
It just seems to me.
I saw
it should
some
be
other ordinances
higher.
that were
Don's
10
still here?
inches.
Bring Don up. Hey, Don, are you still back there? Yes, Mayor. Come on up, please. Don is, those who don't know, he's the fire code enforcement official, but he's also been helping out with the zoning code. We have a question about grass heights and your experience.
Yeah, when does it become unsightly?
Yeah, you've been around, you hear all the complaints that we don't about different properties with high grass. Just give us some, in your experience, is 5 inches, 6 inches, what are you really seeing the calls for?
Don Huber, Township of Long Hill. So I do want to say, I don't consider myself an authority on this stuff, but I've done it for quite a while. And I would, in my opinion, once you get over 4 or 5 inches, it starts to get a little unruly. I mean, think about a lawn. Beyond 4 or 5 inches, things start to look, I think, unkempt. And certainly, a code enforcement official should use discretion and make judgment calls that are reasonable. It's really hard to put everything in the code in black and white. Of course, there has to be language, but I think there has to be some ability for the code enforcement official to use good judgment and case by case, still maintaining a level of fairness and consistency, look at each situation and make a decision to the best of his or her ability.
You just asked me not to put you on the spot, so I will.
Thank you.
Do you think raising it to 6, or do you think 5? I mean, I'm going to defer to, you're more of an expert. I get the idea of using some level of discretion.
I don't think raising it to 6 is a fatal error if the Township Committee is more comfortable with 6, and if they find going forward that that's not suitable, you could always come back and take a second look at it and decide if you want to go to another length. So you're being a little bit more liberal up front till you see how it works. And I'm going to say one other thing. Based on the stricter the code is, you have to factor in that that's going to make that code official a little bit more busy in terms of enforcing things that you get to a point where you got to pick your battles. So 6 might be a better start-off point, and you take it from there.
Thank
My
you,
opinion.
John.
Thank you.
I'd also add that the first step in zoning enforcement is usually sending a notice to the property owner to correct the condition.
Not immediately issuing a summons.
Right.
I would respectfully recommend that we raise it to 6 inches.
I have no issue with that.
Yep. That makes sense.
Thank you,
Don,
Don.
thank you.
It's not-
Have a good night.
Not public portion right now.
No, but I got a comment on this. I just came from Los Angeles with a fire violation on grass. I want
With
to
a what?
share that with you.
We can share it during the open
Yeah,
meeting.
but this is, you're going to vote on this. I want to help
It's an
you.
introduction. Introduction.
All right, so
Whoa, whoa,
I
whoa,
came
stop,
from
stop.
Los Angeles. The property
Mr. Reynolds,
length
Mr.
was 3
Reynolds,
inches.
We will get to you. That's fine. This is not the time for this. This is the first reading. We passed it, then you can talk to the open session.
Well,
And-
why?
Why? We asked Mr. Huber a question because that's what he does. That's what he gets paid to do. That's why he was up here.
Well, I just consulted with New York City Fire Department and Phoenix. I can help you, but that's okay.
Thank you. So, right now, we're only discussing whether we're moving this along to the second reading. That's it. So, we amended it on the fly to 6 inches. And is there any other amendments anybody would like to see or questions up here? Obviously, this will be open for public discussion at a meeting in September when everybody can come in and say whatever they want, which is completely fine. All right, so motion to move this to second reading in, what is it, September 14th, Megan? Thank you, Madam.
So moved. Second.
Committeeman Lavender?
Yes.
Committeeman Ray?
Yes.
Committeeman Verleza?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Pasorchia?
Yes.
Mayor Dorsey?
Yes. All right, the next one, due to a conflict with the car wash, I will recuse myself, Guy. It's 49822. It has something to do with the car wash. So wait till I get out and your meeting.
All right, let's do this again. So Jack, would you mind explaining exactly what we're talking about here?
Yes, we've gone through the redevelopment process for the car wash site. First, the Township Committee referred it to the Planning Board to determine whether it qualified as an area in need of redevelopment. They did. They did, I'm sorry. And then the Township Committee, in fact, did designate it as an area in need of redevelopment and asked the Township Planner, Jessica Caldwell, to prepare a redevelopment plan. What this ordinance does is, on second reading, you will adopt that redevelopment plan, but before that's done, you've got to refer it to the Planning Board for the Planning Board's review and comment, just like you do a zoning ordinance, because it really is a zoning ordinance. The only difference is that the Planning Board has 45 days in which to respond and get its comments back to the Township Committee. So this is just introduction. It's just this one site. It's not a major redevelopment project, but it allows this assisted living facility to go in at the former car wash site.
Thank you, Jack. And that, in fact, is first reading.
Yes.
Does anybody on the committee want to discuss this further, or? No.
Now, just one additional thing, Deputy Mayor. If, in fact, the Planning Board recommends substantive changes, then the council or the Township Committee will have to amend it and
Fair
continue the public hearing until a subsequent hearing.
Would we be able to amend it during the second second reading?
If there are minor changes, you can adopt that same night. If there's substantial changes, either recommended by the Planning Board or just on the Township Committee's own initiative, then you would have to move to amend the plan and continue the public hearing to a subsequent meeting on the redevelopment plan as amended.
If it had to be continued, do you anticipate this causing any issue?
I do not.
Okay. Looking for a motion to approve. First reading,
So moved.
September 28th.
So moved.
Second.
Committeeman Lavender?
No.
Yes.
Committeeman Ray?
Yes.
Committeeman Verleza?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Pasorchia?
Yes.
And Mayor Dorsey's abstaining.
Done with that?
Yep.
All right, so what are we up to now?
Consent agenda.
All right, we're up to consent agenda resolutions 22-199 through 22-214.
There's two that we have to add.
Oh, two we have to add. One is I believe, the Elks Club.
One is 22-214, which is a banner approval for Pediatric Cancer Awareness Month.
Correct.
And Resolution 22-215, social affair permits for the Sterling Elks Honor the Heroes Day.
Okay. Anybody have any ones they want to pull out and discuss or have any issues with?
Yeah, I'll recuse from 22-215.
And I'm recusing from 213. Other than that, any other issues?
Could you identify, Mr. Mayor, or Jack, for that matter, or Nancy, whomever, the third quarter property tax grace period was extended to what date?
September 1st.
Thank you. Sep 1?
Yes.
Thank you, Megan. Sorry, you're the one person I didn't ask. So you're looking for a motion?
Yeah, I'm looking for a motion. Let's go.
Motion to approve, 22199 through 22215, Megan?
With the abstentions mentioned.
Yep.
Second.
Yep, sorry.
Committeeman Lavender?
Yes.
Committeeman Ray?
Yes.
Committeeman Verleza?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Paserchia?
Yes.
Mayor Dorsey?
Yes. All right, next, liaison reports. I'll start on the right this time. Well, I'll start on the left.
No, none.
Oh, okay. Mr. Ray's got no reports. Guy, go ahead.
Nothing, Mr. Mayor.
Scott, they usually have a lot to say.
Yes. Let's start with police liaison report. Statistics for this meeting, self-initiated activity and calls for, sorry, my mic wasn't on. Self-initiated activity and calls for service year to date, 12,546. School activity year to date, 1,363. Motor vehicle stops year to date, 1,229. Motor vehicle crashes year to date, 110. Community policing and proactive residential radar posts, 1,008. Arrest incidents year to date, 16. Actual subjects, adult and juvenile, arrested, 17. Major incidents, none. And on behalf of the police department, they would like to make a statement with regard to community policing. Thank you to all the residents who came out to support the Long Hill Township Police Department and our partner first responders, including Sterling Fire Department, Millington Fire Department, and the Long Hill First Aid Squad. This past August 2nd, National Night Out. We appreciate the partnership we have with our residents and look forward to continue serving Long Hill Township community. Second thing, got an update today from Michael Peoples from Morris County with regard to the radio. I'll read the note. I am writing as a follow-up to my July 13th email concerning the progress of the Wagner Farm radio site. Since my last email, the old cell carrier shelter building has been demolished, site work performed, and construction will soon begin on installing the foundation in anticipation for the new radio shelter to be delivered and installed. I'll continue to provide you with periodic progress reports. Below are pictures, and he gives us pictures of the work being performed. So it looks like it's moving along there. There'll be some other topics that come up in discussion, but I'll move on now, if you're fine with that, to recreation.
Actually, Scott, any update on anticipated date whenever that tower will be complete?
He didn't give it an anticipation. No, he didn't. He said he would keep us informed.
Okay.
Okay. Recreation, first off, congratulations to Chuck Arenowitz and Lynn Vreeland for winning the photography contest. Great job there. I know Nancy is going to give an update on Myersville Ball Field. Apparently the work's going along pretty well with regard to the lights there. Thank you to all the volunteers for summer camps. That wrapped up last week, July 29th. And thank you to everybody who participated in National Night Out. And a special thanks going to the Watch on Hills Regional Municipal Alliance for their financial support of the event and really enabling this to take place, as well as our band, For Flight Rock, who played for a full 3 hours apparently. And in the heat, that was something. Summer concert series continues with another concert tomorrow. You can get the flyers on our website. But Thursday, August 11th, 7 p.m., Epic Soul. Thursday, August 18th, We May Be Right, which is a Billy Joel tribute band guy. August 26th, the B Street Band, not the E Street Band, but the B Street Band. And the C Street Band won't be there. And Thursday, September 1st, the Denigrators ended up at Sterling Lake. Sterling Lake Family Fun Day is this Saturday, rescheduled from last week due to threat of thunderstorms. fall field hockey for grades 5 through 8 registration has opened now through August 15th. The program starts August 22nd. That's fall field hockey. Sterling Lake Beach Dance for Long Hill students, grades 6 to 8, will be held Friday, September 9th, 7:30 to 9:30. And watch the website for another fun Goose Chase scavenger hunt coming up on August 21st and concluding on September 5th. They partnered with the Historical Preservation Advisory Committee to present a history lesson about Long Hill and a fun scavenger hunt style game using the Goose Chase app on our phones. Boy, there's a lot of tongue twisters in the rec today. Thank you.
A lot of alliteration.
All right, that's it?
That's all I
Brief
have.
tonight. Vic, you got anything?
Nothing to report?
All right. From the DPW, as you can see, Lower Sterling is right now pretty ripped up, which is good. They're repaving the road, so if you're driving down there, be slow because the roads aren't paved yet and they're still milled, so watch when you're driving, especially at night, you don't hit any raised manhole covers or anything. They're repairing 155 feet of drainage pipe in Myersville. Al sent me a picture this morning of some big job they were doing that's been basically neglected for years, and the catch basins were getting backed up just because the pipes weren't properly connected. So, Al, they got that cleaned up, so the people on Crest are going to be very happy. We've had extensive discussions the last couple meetings about cameraing all the pipes on Main Street or Main Avenue and Central Avenue prior to the roads being worked on, and Al actually got his guys, they were able to do it themselves. They checked out all the pipes, and turns out they were in pretty good shape. The ones that were broken we knew about, and the other ones they just had to get blown out because they had some debris in them, but between DPW and New Jersey American, they figured it out. They blew out the pipes, got rid of the sediment, so the pipes are working well again. Cantor Park, they're always here working, maintenance, trimming. You'll see them around. Lawn maintenance all over town. They're doing tree work, which I think Nancy will highlight a little more on Myersville Field to get ready for the lighting project that should start up in the next month. And it's a constant, steady stream of repairing catch basins. There's over 1,200 of them in town. Probably wouldn't realize that. And to all our firefighters, great job. I know in the last month they actually had 3 fires to handle. They had a structure fire and 2 car fires. They did a great job, and most importantly, all of you came home safely, so great job. Let's see, administrator report.
Regarding Myersville Field, the electrical equipment was dropped off yesterday. The field, the playground, and the tennis courts are closed during construction, but the footings will be put in next week, and then lights will start to go in after that. They actually hope to complete the job by the end of August, which is way ahead of schedule. The swing set was replaced, the one that was damaged in the last storm, but the rest of the playground equipment, the new equipment that we budgeted for, is stalled due to supply chain issues. It will probably be installed by fall, but it will definitely be installed by the spring. You mentioned the Main Avenue paving project. It did begin on Monday. Our engineer, Mark, is on Zoom, I believe.
Yeah.
He had a report, if you can.
His hand is raised. I'm going to allow him to speak. Go ahead, Mark.
Good evening. Good evening, committee members.
We can hear you.
The construction project for the Main and Central Avenue, we had a pre-construction meeting on July 25th. Then issued a notice to proceed because all items were in order. We issued a notice to proceed on August 3rd. Construction started on August 8th. Between the pre-construction meeting and the start of construction, notices and advance signs were put out. Actually, we had the contractor provide a notice to all the residents along the project limits, all the business owners along the project limits, to notify them of the temporary parking restrictions that will take place throughout construction. This is a 90-day by contract construction. The contractor has estimated an actual construction time, weather permitting, of approximately 8 to 10 weeks. The initial focus has been mostly on the south end of the project. The initial items of work have been the beginning to set up the ADA ramps at the intersections. Right now, you see driveway aprons. If you go by, you'll see the driveway aprons at the south end of the project between Morris and Valley. Those are being replaced because we are installing the conduit for the future decorative lights. We are also, one of the critical staging elements we've worked out with the contractor is we are staging the work. Once we finish the concrete work with the aprons, we will be focusing on the catch basin repairs. So within the structures themselves, the catch basins at the curb lines between the pipes that were inspected by DPW, we're going to be looking at those and making any necessary superficial repairs to bricks, resetting grates, etc. But the critical element is that the contractor will be breaking up the milling and paving operations into 2 phases or stages. We will be completing the milling and paving operations on the north leg or the Central Avenue portion from the railroad to Long Hill Road in August before school reopens, so that we will be able to concentrate construction activities south of the tracks with a less imposing detour. If we can get the paving done before school starts, all through, would be great. We're not sure we can do that because of the concrete work, but we will definitely have the paving done on the north leg so as not to impact school operations. And so far we've been advancing pretty good in the last, it's only been the first few days of construction. There's always a few hiccups on the first days of construction, but the contractor has been keeping a pretty tight footprint where he can. He has to impact some areas for construction activity, but we're trying to keep him to a very compact, tight area and minimize parking loss, to just the immediate work area. So we're not shutting down all the parking for the entire block, the entire street, just to work in one isolated area. We will continue to monitor operations with the contractor, and we'll keep you posted on any schedule changes.
Thank you, Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
All right, Nancy, you have
So
anything else?
I just have 2 more things. So regarding paving, our municipal paving project this year was delayed due to heat. Apparently, the contractor, they can only work so long during the extreme heat. So everything was delayed by a day, and we just learned earlier this evening that the schedule is going to start tomorrow. So while we had it on our website that it would have begun today, everything got pushed back a day. So tomorrow, Old Mill, Waverly, and Morris will be paved. Friday, Essex, Lackawanna, and Harrison, and then Monday, King, Riverview, and Norwood. And our website should be updated tomorrow. And the last thing I have is our second annual Community Cleanup Day will be held on Saturday, September 17th from 8 a.m. to 12 noon. And in the coming days, please check the website to sign up and for additional information. That's all I have.
Thank you. All right, discussion items. Nancy, I think this first one's yours, the White Bridge Road tree replacement.
It is. So first, these are 2 separate things. In Cantor Park last year, we talked about clearing and grading that hill near Valley Road, and the committee agreed, and we bought trees that were planted as a buffer. So now we just want to confirm with you that you agree we can clean up that portion closer to Valley Road. DPW would do the clearing and removal of dead or diseased trees, and we have 2 quotes to grade and topsoil the rest and plant 15 flowering trees. The low quote is $21,200, and we do have money in open space to pay for this. You did have a discussion, you had lengthy discussions in the past, but now that we did the first phase of the project, I want to make sure that you are okay with moving ahead with the second phase, and then that you are okay with taking $21,200 from open space to do it.
Vic, this is one of your big projects, Cantor Park cleaning up by Valley Road, right?
Yeah, no, looking forward to getting it done.
That's what I figured. Wait, did you talk about the tree swap?
No,
Oh.
that's next.
Oh, all right. I don't have any, does anybody have any issue with that? That's cleaning up, Al's over there, we can ask him too. I know it's cleaning up, basically, if you're looking at Valley Road, the berm along the top, correct, Al?
Top of the berm to the new arborvitae's that were planted.
All right, and then I guess the second phase of that would be to what, to plant some nicer trees in there?
Yeah, the quote has 15 flowering trees and hydro seed.
Okay. Does anybody have any issue with that? No.
I know this was a pet project of Committeeman Burles's, and I want to thank him for nagging us meeting after meeting, and now it's coming to fruition, so thank you.
Looking forward to it. Thank you.
So then I guess my question for Jack, do we have to do an ordinance for the open space?
Yes,
Okay, so. do it
just like a
next
capital improvement fund.
Okay. And then the second part of that, next year, the county is replacing the bridge on White Bridge Road. And as part of their DEP permit, they are required to replace trees, required to do mitigation. So they need about 1/4 of an acre of land to replace the trees. We'd initially thought that maybe they could do them up on Cantor Field, but they don't want to put flowering trees on. They just want to put, trees on. And they're not real clear what kind of trees they're going to be. So we were thinking that maybe they could use the back end of the Everly property, closer to the river. I mean, it's very treed back there anyway, so we're wondering if you're okay with that. I mean, if you're not, I can ask him to look somewhere else. But he asked where you would like the additional trees. They have to mitigate 11,000 square feet.
Didn't we talk about putting them over here?
Well, we did talk about them, but they're not willing to put in the kind of trees that we want. We wanted just nice flowering trees, 15. They want to put in a lot of trees. So.
Well, we can, I guess, table this because we don't know what we're doing the other place yet. When do they need to know that?
Well, he needs DEP approval, so sooner rather than later. I mean, if you want to think about it, we could talk about it again in September.
Yeah, I'd rather talk about it in September. Al's shaking his head because I think that was your idea, Al, the plan. You try to swap out those trees to put over here, which would have been great, but they don't want.
We did, but then we talked about it, and they're just going to put whatever trees they want up there, and they have a lot of them. So we didn't think it was what you were looking for up there. I mean, I could ask the engineer to come to the meeting.
Oh, we need to just talk about it more. So we don't need an answer tonight, correct?
No, but soon.
Yeah, so let's get it on in September. We'll talk about them and get some more information and move on from there.
Okay.
Thank you. All right. Let's talk about the outdoor music next. What we found out is, I guess, Cholento, our local restaurant, had a band going a couple weeks ago. There was a noise complaint made. And then we found out, there was no outdoor, there was an ordinance, which is St. Jack, that you can't play outdoor music.
No outdoor music permitted in connection with outdoor dining.
And clearly, a lot of these restaurants are using outdoor music, unbeknownst to anybody else. So we have an ordinance in place now. It doesn't allow restaurants and bars to do that. However, we don't want to curtail that because people actually enjoy that and come to town. It's great for the local businesses. So I'm just wondering if we can at least, suspend the enforcement of that ordinance. We can cap it at a certain time maybe, and then we could revisit it back in maybe September, but I don't want to hurt these restaurants that have bands booked, they have people coming into town, and I think it's one complaint in the last few years as far as I know.
Maybe ask the planning board to take a look at it. In the meantime, you can hold enforcement in abeyance, and as the mayor said, to set some time limits or some reasonable restrictions.
Yeah, I think we should set time limits for sure, and also, perhaps look at the amplification. Perhaps we don't need the amount of amplification that we're actually getting because, homeowners, it may only be one, but nevertheless, there was it's obviously a good deal of upset to that particular homeowner whenever they're being.
I agree with that.
Right.
Whatever we do should speak to the decibel level that's allowable.
Yep.
And again, I mean, it's a different world now with all the outdoor dining that kind of came out of the pandemic, right?
Does anybody have an issue with like a 10 o'clock cap?
I'd like to. I mean, I think it should be moved up to 9. That would be my preference. I think.
Midnight.
Gonna come rocking on Elm Street or Winding Way.
Does it change? Like sometimes they have, other towns have those ordinances, but they're earlier during the week, and then they give you an exception for Friday and Saturday.
That's not a bad. Obviously, during the week should be no later than 9 o'clock, like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I don't know. Typically, I know the hotel Cholento. I don't know if they have bands Thursday. I don't know if they have bands on Thursday, but I know they have them during the days on the weekends. I'm not exactly sure, but I don't want to curtail that. Does anybody have any other issue with the timing? time-wise?
I mean, if we do move forward with the timing, then we should definitely look at the amplification, Jack.
Well, the
It's
issue with the
something that we can do
amplification is, in theory, it's almost impossible to enforce. For example, it can be loud, we can say it's an X amount of decibel level, unless I'm wrong.
Actually, it's not hard to enforce.
Well, the
I mean,
county
there's-
has to do it, the Board of Health.
There's NIOSH decibel rating meters, apps on phones. I have one.
Yeah, but when's it,
I think for now, since we're just holding enforcement in abeyance, it may be smart just to say it can't be a nuisance, and let the planning board come up with an ordinance which would have both hours permitted as well as decibel levels, rather than trying to do it on the fly tonight. Because we're doing the businesses a favor by not enforcing the ordinance, which now prohibits all outdoor music. So we just say, it can't be so loud as to be,
Can we look at what other towns are doing too?
Oh, yeah, I think we
Reinvent
should
the
as
wheel
part of the
here.
ordinance, but, tonight this is really an informal decision not to enforce the ordinance pending consideration of a new ordinance.
that's fair. Anybody else, any comments? Brandon, anything else?
I think that's fair.
All right, so be it. All
Are they
right.
making a motion?
Yeah, I would do a motion.
A motion to hold it, hold that ordinance in abeyance until the planning board or somebody else can review it?
Right, I would send it to the planning board
Yeah,
right away.
they could.
I would send it to the planning board right away.
Okay.
That's fine. Any
So moved.
thank you.
Second,
Committeeman Lavender?
Yes.
Committeeman Ray?
Yes.
Committeeman Verleza?
yes.
Deputy Mayor Paserchia?
Yes.
Mayor Dorsey?
Yes. The next one was emergency purchasing. Back, I don't know, when did we pass this?
It's at the bottom.
No, I'm looking for, what year was, when we originally passed it? Oh, back in October of 2021, we passed an ordinance, I remember we had a great discussion over it, is in this state of emergency, who can declare, it's a state of emergency for purchasing purposes? Is that what that's what it is?
That's correct.
Yeah, and now, at least I was looking at it again, and I'm the mayor sitting here, and the way it goes is I would have to make that decision, whoever's sitting here, not me. And I don't think the mayor should be qualified to do that, because we're not here 24/7. We're not, we live here, we go on vacation, and I would ask or urge, see if you guys want to reconsider changing it back to the administrator or the CFO or the QPA, that somebody actually knows the purchasing laws. So if it comes up, again, I might just say, yeah, do it, and then all of a sudden, there might be some issue that we can't do it. So that's why I'd rather turn it over to somebody with more specialized training than at least the 4 or 5 of us. It may change if the board changes, but right now, none of us are really qualified to make those decisions. So if anybody want to discuss?
Jack, in other towns, who would typically be that person?
It would ordinarily be the administrator if you're going to have a member of the staff. The QPA is more of a administrative kind of decision, making sure it complies with the regulations.
All right,
As
so-
opposed to making policy decisions.
And what are the boundaries on the permission?
Well, it's got to be an emergency that you don't have time to go through the normal bidding process or the normal quote process in order to protect public health and safety.
Is there an upper limit?
There's no dollar limit, no. It's discretionary. We already have it on the books. As the mayor said, when this was adopted in October, there was quite a bit of discussion, and the way you set it up was the mayor was the first person, and I think the deputy mayor.
Correct. All right.
Was the backup.
Fortunately, our administrator is also our QPA, so it really comes down to QPA or CFO.
Well, again, that's 5, 10 years from now, who knows who's going to be the administrator, QPA, or CFO? But I would think whoever those people may be, they have more specialized training than
Right, so I'm
any of us.
asking, do we have to identify one person? And if so, should it be the CFO or the administrator?
As I say, I don't think the CFO or the QPA really make judgment calls, per se. That their job is to make sure there's compliance with the applicable
Okay,
laws
so
and
administrator
and
then.
regulation. Now, you could put in consultation with the QPA to make sure it's.
Okay, fair enough.
Complies. It's up to you.
The problem I have with that is that we're elected officials, and so we should be here, especially in times of emergency, and we should be able to make that determination ourselves. Now, we obviously will rely on the QPA or the administrator or the CFO to make sure that things are done properly and that they actually can be done. But I feel strongly, just as I did in October, I guess, whenever we last talked about this, that this is a decision that should be made by an elected official. It's what we signed on for.
I disagree. We did sign on to make decisions, and yes, should we be here in a time of emergency? We should, but we're not always here. Vacations, jobs, things like that, where it's the job of the CFO, the administrator, QPA, that's their job. They're here at least during the work week, that's their job. Where you could be on a business trip, Guy could be away, I could be somewhere, Vic could be wherever, Scott, they travel, and things they did, then it's an extra step. So, example, something came up tomorrow, I made a decision, I would still have to run it by either Nancy or Randy or somebody that knows what they're doing before it even been implemented. So if we just skip the one person in the step and goes to the people that are qualified to answer the questions, I just think it'd be more streamlined, but that's my opinion.
No, I do, just as I did as we disagreed in this point in October, Matt.
Correct.
And it's, it's very rare that you get the deputy mayor and the mayor not around, especially in the emergencies, at any time of emergency. And, as I say, we're there, we're on the ground. I know whenever Ida struck, I was out that night. I saw it, and I certainly saw the damage that it had caused and the work that was being done to kind of push it back. And so I certainly considered that I was in a position to make the kinds of decisions that needed to be made if I needed to do it. And so I strongly believe that as an elected official, that's what you're there for.
As I said in October, either way is legal. It's totally up to you. It's a policy decision as to how you wish to proceed.
Vic, do you have anything on this?
You know, I have to be honest, I lie in the middle on this one. I do agree we're elected officials and we should have the capacity to make that decision for the public. However, I fear, because I don't know the rules of purchasing like a QPA would, that maybe technically it wouldn't be the right, I would make a decision that I wasn't say it was an emergency and it really wasn't. I don't have that.
But that's why you have the professional staff, Vic. Right, you have them to rely on. You make the determination, and just as we did in October, it was Jack, I believe, that we went to. Jack said, yeah, what you're doing here is permissible, is legal. We moved ahead, and we spent the money that we needed to do, and we got the work done. And that was done by the elected officials. So I really don't see why we need to change it at this point. It worked very well then, and as I say, just as this is the stuff that we sign on for.
Guy, you want to say something?
Yeah, I think I agree with Committeeman Ray. But we can phrase it, as Jack said, where, in consultation, but I would say the mayor in consultation with the CFO and the QPA, and in the absence of the mayor, the deputy mayor, and if both are out of town, just go down the food chain. But I think that makes sense.
Scott?
That's my opinion.
I agree with you.
Scott?
I think I favor more of a hybrid approach where beyond a certain threshold, we should be consulted, but I would imagine there's a lot of stuff that kind of falls beneath the plimsoll line on this.
So
For example?
I don't know.
You
I
mean
don't know. It just,
I think most.
look, anything I say, someone's going to say, well, that's not an emergency. Well, whatever, right? But let's say someone needs a tire on a truck, right? $400. It's an emergency.
I thought you were talking about a threshold, financial
I'm talking
threshold.
about a financial threshold. Over a certain dollar amount, when things start getting into real money, then yes, we should be involved in that. But I could imagine that there's a lot of stuff that falls beneath that. And, again, we're just talking about this for the first time tonight. I'm giving you my initial impression. I'd like to hear more conversation on this and be offered to give it more thought before we make a snap decision.
I think most emergency purchases aren't, enormous amounts of money. It's a pump. We don't
it's
have
a
a sewer
pump or
plant
something,
anymore. It's
yeah.
a pump at the pumping station, kind of emergency as opposed to what we went through last year.
And do we want to get involved in all the ticky-tack stuff like that? I don't think so. But for large repairs like we had last year, Brendan's absolutely right, right? We have to live with that. Did I make my point?
Yeah.
All right, so I guess we're doing nothing with it then, correct? That's what it sounds like. All right. The last thing on discussion, Scott, I'll let you discuss that.
Okay, yeah, this is brought to our attention by Chief Naga. There's an ambulance, an old ambulance coming from the first aid squad. I think it wound up in Brendan over at Millington Firehouse. Now Al Gallo has. It's a 1998 ambulance. The chief would like to use this for transporting road barriers for events and stuff like that. I mean, currently, right now, he relies on Al's group to do that work. And sometimes the police have got barricades shoved into the back seat of a Ford Explorer, and that's not really the right way to do this. So what he's looking for is to simply transfer responsibility for that over to the police department. And additionally, you know, he'll want to paint that, put in traffic equipment, light bar, whatever. And so the question is, are we okay with that? Had a conversation with Al. He's vouched for the condition of the vehicle, that it's in good shape.
How many miles, Scott?
Al, how many miles? 198? 87,000. Yeah.
Al, you using it at all for anything, or we're just sitting around?
No, we just took the letters off, took the light bar, and it's just been sitting in the garage.
All right, thanks.
Okay. So do you guys have any problem with that?
Well, I have no problem with them using it, sitting around. Somebody might as well get some use out of it. But as to the budgetary stuff, if it's in their budget, they can do whatever they want with it.
Right, I mean, I think it's a great idea if it serves a purpose.
Yes.
The only question I would have is, rather than put an expense on painting or whatever it is, we're well into this year, maybe we'd want to consider an updated vehicle in the new year, or I don't know. I don't have a problem either way.
Well, that's the whole point. I mean, it's a useful asset. It's in decent condition. It's got the capacity that would serve its purpose. And it seems like a pretty easy thing to me, just to transfer it over, let the police have it, and go from there. As far as any upgrades that need to be made, yeah, it probably should not be orange and white, right? It should be painted in the proper colors and this, that, and the other. Probably should have the right kind of radio and stuff like that in it. The chief's budget, can fit that, then why not?
Yeah, I defer
right?
to the chief, whatever he thinks is right.
They
is
should
fine.
not be driving around town with barricades in the back of a Ford Explorer.
Vic, anything?
No,
All right,
I'm in
so
agreement.
Thinks that's resolved then.
All right, so do we need to vote on that, or?
No, you've had a consensus.
Yeah.
I don't think
Okay.
any formal action is required. The town already owns the vehicle, so.
Yeah, and it was one other thing, and I neglected to mention this earlier during the liaison report, and I want to circle back to it. The chief had aired some concern about that section of New Jersey Transit on the Berkeley Heights Long Hill border, where we had an unfortunate accident of someone getting hit on the tracks. With Vic's help, Vic set up a call with Senator John Bramnick. Yeah, myself, the chief, Vic, Senator Bramnick, and his administrator on. We were able to explain the problem to the senator. He committed to us that he would go back to New Jersey Transit and talk about some of the ideas we had and see what their point of view was, because they were on site for that last accident. The most recent update I got from Brian Lee, his administrator, is that they reached out to New Jersey Transit. They still don't have an answer back on them, on this. But we're going to continue to follow up with them until we get some satisfaction.
Scott, can I ask, is that in Berkeley Heights or in Long Hill?
It's right on the border.
It
Right on the
really,
border?
it's on the border. I mean, it's the section underneath the bridge, and the chief had a good point. I mean, there's a blind spot as the train goes.
No, that's not my,
Yeah.
so and thank you, Brendan. My point would be, I think Berkeley Heights should be included in the conversation.
Well, Berkeley, yeah, and that's New Jersey Transit's
But
responsibility.
I think out of respect,
Yeah.
we should call Berkeley Heights and let them know we had this meeting.
Yes. I'll make a note of that. And that's all.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, announcements. I actually just got a message before the meeting started. St. Vincent's is running a blood drive tomorrow. Supplies are running low, so if you're around tomorrow, please get over there and help them out with the blood drive. There's the Honor the Hero Day at the Elks Club, September 10th. Kelly Mazzocchi was putting that together. So September 10th, I don't know the time, so do you know the time, Scott?
10 to 6.
10 to 6, there you go, at the Elks Club. Then we have, what's the other one here? Community budget, oh, names of those who served in Korean conflict. I received an email from the county a couple weeks ago, or before the meeting, yeah, a week or so before the meeting. They're looking for documenting veterans of forgotten wars. The county is looking for any veterans you may know or be related to, or if you are a veteran of the Korean War, to please contact them. They are trying to generate a database and honor those people that don't normally get honored, and they want to recognize them. So if you want to add a soldier or sailor to the list, email this person called Jan Williams. Their address is jwilliams@co.mars.nj.us. So if you have a Korean War vet that lives in the county, please contact Jan Williams, and they will get them registered and recognized. Thank you. Any other announcements?
Mr. Mayor, maybe you can reiterate that the B Street ban tomorrow night. What time is that again, Scott?
Oh, you're gonna ask me that. 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock?
I don't know.
7 to
7
8:30.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, any other announcements? All right, so we're going to open the meeting to the
No,
public.
we
I know-
missed
Go
old and new business.
Oh, new business. Anybody with new business? Thank you, Madam Clerk.
I have new business.
Go ahead.
Just a question for you, Nancy. Could you tell us about the JIF's policy on any allegations of protected class, harassment, intimidation, age discrimination? Could you tell us what their policy is?
Whose policy?
The JIF.
The JIF?
The JIF.
Oh, can you speak on me? I would contact the JIF on that. I don't know if Nancy knows what their policy is, do you?
What their policy is, I mean,
Whenever it's reported.
well, so what happens is if somebody files a claim against the township, no matter what it is, the JIF gets notified, and then they assign an attorney to it, and then they handle it. I mean, it's obviously a fact-by-fact basis, you know. It depends on what the facts and the circumstances are. I mean, I don't know that there's a policy per se, and they're our insurance company, essentially.
Okay, thanks. Because the reason I ask is because as an elected official, I've become aware of a hostile work environment that exists in Long Hill Township, and having mentioned it now, I want it to be investigated by a completely neutral third party. The party who I believe is subject to a hostile work environment is Chief Naga.
We can't discuss that in public.
No. Yeah, I think we can.
No, we won't.
No,
You cannot
because
discuss
what I'm telling you,
personnel matters
I'm
in
not. This
public.
isn't a personnel matter.
Yes,
This
it is.
what I'm doing. What I'm saying
Harassment.
here.
If somebody's
No,
subject to discrimination, it should be reported properly in private. And
then-
how many times have you been told you are not permitted to
I
discuss
can't-
police
you know,
business?
you can't
If
shut
you
me
want to
down.
discuss police
If-
business, you can resign your seat and sit out there or
Right.
become a lobbyist.
Well,
This can be reported by the chief or whoever tomorrow. This is a publicity stunt, Brendan.
It's not a publicity stunt.
It can
It's
be reported
abs-
properly to the county and/or the administrator tomorrow.
It's absolutely not a publicity stunt.
This is a
But
personnel matter.
it can't be dealt with at a public township committee meeting. It should be
Okay,
dealt
well,
with
it's
through the
been
proper
made.
channel.
I've said it.
Okay, then tomorrow to get investigated, or at least I'll start the process.
Right. And that's all I want.
You could have made a phone call this morning, or whenever it happened. That would have been the wiser choice. Okay, any other new business? Seeing none. I know many of you are probably here because you want to discuss the MRI consultant study. Just to give you some background, why it was done. Throughout the year, we, meaning the Township Committee, have heard about issues with the police department with staffing, radios, mobile data terminals, dispatch, accreditation, budgeting, purchasing. And as you know, we are 5 lay people. None of us knows how to run a police department. I think everybody in this room agrees on that. So what we're trying to do is we commissioned a study to help us, meaning the committee, understand how the police department works and help all of us, meaning the police department, the committee, serve all the community better. That is the reason for it. MRI itself is doing a high-level overview with the goal of identifying potential enhancements and risks in the police department and in the town. and we're using a third party that really has no skin in the game. They're not from around here, they don't know us, they don't know the police department. We're trying to get somebody called balls and strikes, a neutral party. And we're trying to get a more objective study by doing it with people we don't know and don't know anybody else. We are not commenting as a committee on the study until we have a final report. So if you're looking to solicit comments out of us, you're not going to get them because we have nothing to report on. So you feel free to say anything you want for your 3 minutes, but we're not engaging in a conversation about the study itself.
Mr. Mayor, will the study, when it is completed, be released to the public?
I'm not exactly sure. Is that, yes, yeah.
It probably will be. It may have redactions,
Names.
Well,
Right, you wouldn't
Names.
have names.
positions, things that may affect
But the
public safety and security.
essence of.
I'm not sure what it's going to say, so
No, I understand that, but it will be a public document.
So with that being said, I will open the meeting to the public. Mr. Faradino.
Mr. Ferrandino, I still live at 623 Chestnut Street. After the last study that was done for the condemnation at the Valero gas station, what was that, $36,000 paid to a consultant that when questioned about the traffic, about children in the school with the new building presented that was supposed to go up, and so on and so forth. I would like to nominate myself to be a consultant for this town for any future projects. I could use the 30 grand plus. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joe.
Having been participants of the residents who had to pay out of pocket.
Can you stand next to the mic, please?
$35,000. Okay, when it was
Can you
touted
state
for
your
an
name for the record?
Okay,
Sorry.
I know. Marianne Noonan, 110 Lackawanna Boulevard, Gillette. Again, I will reiterate what Joe had just stipulated. A 18,000 study for an area in need of redevelopment was conducted. It was absolutely ridiculous. Our township people, okay, and I want to say my community, I spent 7 months of research for a bogus report, okay? All I could say, and aside from that, we raised $25,000. I put out $1,000 out of my pocket. My neighbors were putting $1,000 out of my pocket. If any of you know me, and I could go down the line right now, Scott, you don't know me yet. But all I could say is, if anything, my anger, the way it was handled, and honestly, I'll bring the name up, Bruce Marangolo. And I'm glad he's no longer in this township. Okay? But all I'm going to say, lesson learned once, and then I see all this going on again, and there's many, many questions. Okay? And we'll proceed now, because I have given more to you in terms of information. Can I go down the line and agree? I just sent you a note to remind you, putting the group home, okay? I could go down the line. We've had conversations. I have brought attention with the taxes back in the day where there was a $15 late fee. Brendan, remember Mountain Avenue? And you, when the whole thing, and we had no power, you and I were communicating via text. So when you came up about who's got to lead, who's got to do this, my question is going back to, what about our OEM? Isn't that the solution? If we have an emergency in this town, and if you know about me, I am fighting against the Fair Share Housing Center. And if you please keep up with my emails, Hillcrest Avenue just approves. Again, last night, a second development. We are not going to have access up to Hillcrest. There's a Cahovnanian, and there's also a Hillcrest. Hillcrest are rentals. Cahovnanian is, it's property owned. but it's not housing. On top of that, we have our 62 units, and we have the possibility of Lot 22 with another 100 units. So anyway, when I get up to speak, I just want to preface this. This is how hurt I am, because after going to 9 months of dealing with a resolution and my neighbors and what we went through because of the greed of one man, and if I were to write a study right now, a case study, if residents did not get involved, imagine if that Valero station was knocked down. And we have another 400 units being built, or 452 units, potentially 552 units. That's the only gas station off of Hillcrest.
Thank you.
And my 3 minutes are up.
Yes.
And then I will return. But I just want to make that comment
Thank you.
before I do my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Joseph Bartolotta, 263 Union Street. I saw that you didn't allow Mr. Ray to continue with his speech about a hostile work environment. So I'm going to continue with mine.
Not the proper
No,
place.
I'm a resident. I want to state something. I'm not accusing anybody. I'm asking a question to this board and the administrator. So you're aware of the article that was in the paper last week, right? In the Echoes?
The ad or the article?
Well, article, whatever it is. At the bottom, there's a part that's really stood out to me and is concerning to me. Is there a retaliation because or discrimination based on Chief Naga's religious or ethnic background? So my question to this board and administrator, have any of you at any time made any inappropriate or racist comments pertaining to the chief's ethnic or religious background?
Joe, we're not answering these questions here.
Why not?
It's not happening.
Okay, so then I'm going to take that as a yes, probably.
Take it for what
And
you
I'm
know.
also
We're
going
not engaging in this
to
conversation.
I'm also going to advise you that under New Jersey law, one party does not have to notify the other party that they're being recorded, right? So when you go home tonight, really, really think about if you ever said anything, and if you had, save yourself the embarrassment of it coming out here, and just resign. Because what you're doing to this guy is a disgrace, and you should be ashamed of yourself. And when I wrote, get your resumes in order, I mean it.
Thank you, Joe.
Mark DiGiovanni, Heritage Road. You guys are familiar with me. I've come up here and spent too many Wednesdays of my time away from my kids and family to talk to you guys. So what I wanted to address tonight, again, not that I want to, but again, it's the same thing that I brought up back in January. And for those people who haven't been a part of this conversation, I'll share a little bit of what it is. And it really just relates to this communications contract that we have, this agreement with Morris County, okay? I've brought up multiple times, I've asked questions, I've gotten relatively defensive, evasive responses from this committee. Not much direction, more often than not it's vague. And I'm also noticing that there's been a penchant recently to prefer to share anecdotal instances that show how wonderful a job it is at the expense of other people. And I don't think that's correct. I don't think it's right. And I think what I'd like to see from this committee is some accountability for what it is. I'm not blaming you for the challenges that they have. What I am blaming you for are the same issues that I had before. One, we have an issue with coverage. We all know it. From the beginning, we had an issue with coverage. It's been known, and I'll talk about that in a few seconds. Secondly, we entered into a poor contractual service agreement. This is kindergarten Mickey Mouse stuff. Literally, there are no SLAs, no service level agreements, so people don't understand what that means, that they have a certain level and standard that they must provide us a service by to a most critical arm that we have, right? And then on the other side of it, right, you know, we have the request that I've asked to evaluate new solutions, all right? And we've talked about, Tango, we've talked about, you know, Wagner Farm and all these other things. And the problem with this is that another problem's gonna pop up down the road, and the same BS usual scenario is gonna happen, and they're just gonna kick the can down the road, and we're still gonna have minimal or okay coverage, right? The fact is this, is that there's no service level agreement. Morris County, in the writing, in the language, says they are not committed to make any changes. Let me be very clear about this. The provider that provides us the communications to the most critical arm of our first responders does not have our interests in mind because they're not guaranteed to provide a certain level of service. They do not care. If they're not held to 100% or somewhere near that, they're not going to move anything. When we have policemen state that, hey, the services aren't working, what do? We have Morris County come over and check, and they say, no, it all works out great. It's your problem. They're not there to solve the problem. They're not our friend. And we're continuously going up with these guys. This Wagner Farm scenario, right? Still not resolved. We don't even have a date. Let's get a commitment from them. So at the end of the day, you know, the one thing I'll say, and Guy has said it multiple times, we've saved $2 million. That's excellent. That's $200,000 a year. That's amazing. Let me ask you a question, though. What, other than this financial component of it, Guy, because you're the only person that voted for this out of this group, what else besides the financial was the reason that you picked this service?
First off, it's closer to $3 million, numbers I know. And secondly...
$3 million? How?
$3 million. And secondly, since you asked me a question, I'm going to answer it. There are 26 or 27 towns in Morris County that have all signed up with the county dispatch, all with that same agreement you just denigrated.
That's erroneous. I don't care. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
That doesn't answer my question. My question is, what else besides the financial did you make your decision on?
It was a big part of it.
That seems it's the only reason. And the fact is, it's not because of the service. You're saving money.
Right,
Let me finish this. You're saving money because we're getting an inferior service from what we had with Bernardsville. Mike Peoples, in the document that you shared, that study.
The former police chief in Long Hill Township.
Correct.
27-year police officer in Long Hill Township.
I know, exactly. You and both Committee Lavender released a confidential document to the newspaper and to people, to residents here in this town.
It wasn't a confidential document.
Mike Peoples, I have the communication directly to Nancy that says this is Oprah exempt and this is confidential, interagency. It isn't an email. I have proof of that. And you disseminated that, all right, for your own political optics.
Hold on a second. It was Oprah'd by a resident who happens to be here. That's the only reason I knew the report existed.
It was
and I
denied
I confirm with Mike Peoples.
I'll share the document.
I
I'll share
confirm
the email with you.
I confirm with Mike Peoples that it could be shared far and wide.
So you're telling me the email that he sent to Nancy doesn't exist?
And the Echo Sentinel has had that report since May. And then a reporter for the Echo Sentinel asked for clarification regarding the repeaters and the radios. And that clarification was provided, and then it also was sent to the Echo Sentinel.
I'll share with you the email where Mr. Peoples...
I don't need it.
Yes,
I
you
don't
do.
need it.
He specifically says it. So don't deny it. I'll show it to you.
It doesn't matter. First of all, you're attacking the process instead of the facts. The facts in that report are the facts. I can't change them. I didn't make them up. So you can read whatever you want, but it's out.
You're telling me that it's not confidential?
I'm telling you, I saw it. It was given in the newspaper. It was Oprah'd by
That doesn't make it
your
right.
neighbor.
And you know what? It was Oprah'd and it was rejected.
Okay, so what's your point?
The point is that you release confidential documentation. Why?
Go ahead, Jack.
In my opinion, it does not qualify as a deliberative communication.
Okay, then there should be...
So it's a public record, and the Government Records Council tends to favor release of public records. There's nothing in there that's deliberative, and nothing in there...
You're telling me there's nothing security-wise that's stating that there are areas within our town that have communication spots, that's not a risk or a scenario that threatens or puts our public at risk?
That was all made public at numerous public meetings by residents and by others.
Well, I think there's a mix-up here, right? And again, it's usual, right? There's a factual email from Michael Peoples, the individual who made this presentation.
Okay, we'll accept that fact. But the
Michael
point is-
Peoples has a caveat at the bottom
Let's
of
move
every
on.
email.
Then I'll move on to, because I don't want to take more time. I really don't. I'm not here to sit here and what I'm sitting here trying to do is that there is an issue here, okay? There is an issue here. We didn't sign up because it's a better service. At the end of the day, we're saving $200,000 to risk the safety of our first responders and the residents of this town. Okay? We need to get a better service. Plain and simple. We get Wagner Farms up and running, something better. Oh, hey, it improved. We don't need improvement. We need someone that's held to a standard that's going to allow our first responders to do their job. Okay, very simple. What I'm going to tell you about this report that most people might not know, this is what it says. The previous communications functions that was provided with Burns Township, this is 2004, operated on a VHF radio system for police, fire, and EMS. The radio system covered both townships with excellent coverage. Mike Peoples, quote, direct. Significant conversations at the beginning of the evaluation period for the Morris County stated that were significant conversations held about radio coverage and concerns in Long Hill Township. Morris County stated they made it extremely clear the radio system was designed for HIP portal coverage, not in-building coverage, okay? And that the county never represented that the radio system would provide in-building coverage. So these are the things that we knew when we made this decision, right? We knew that we were getting an inferior product. You guys didn't make that decision, so I'm not sitting here pointing at you. What I'm saying is we're aware of it. Mike Peoples, these are directly from the presentation that he provided you. The next thing he stated, despite the pre-identified portable reception areas, because they did testing to see where those were, the Long Hill Township elected to proceed with the transition. These guys are literally saying you are going to get a lesser service. They are doing everything they possibly can to say, look, buyer beware, right? So there are a lot of other things that that Morris County did do, right? After we transitioned to county dispatch, that's when the police started reporting portable reception issues. You know, Morris County worked with Motorola. They, tweaked an antenna here. There were issues with portable radios. They didn't work in the school systems, and they're constantly cobbling stuff together. At the end of the day, cobbling does not work. There needs to be a standard and a set of level of services. So my point is, through 10 years, we've had this system with Morris County that we all know, the police, other communications, they've complained about it. My question to you guys is, and again, I don't know, have we convened any meetings with the first responders of this town to ask them, what are their thoughts on the communication systems?
Discuss it all the time here, and
No. Not with one individual, with the community, because there seems to be a bigger problem here, right? We can ask, Chief Naga a question, and it doesn't seem like you guys take it. Let me ask you a question. Did you ask and call up the fire manufacturer for the trucks that we're buying and say, hey, what do you guys think? No, you asked the guys at the fire department. What do we need? And that's what I think is being missed here.
Okay, to be fair, that's a good point. And when you keep saying we, I want to remind the public and you, because I've said it repeatedly. The we you refer to included both fire chiefs. The police chief at the time, Dan Hedden, the OEM director, and the captain of the first aid squad, all voted to move to the county.
Correct. I did. And you know
Full
what?
stop.
And listen, 5 people making the wrong decision doesn't make it right.
Wasn't the
it
wrong
doesn't
decision.
exculp you. It doesn't exculp you from the accountability that you have as a servant in this community. Make it right. Find the right thing to do. That's all I'm saying here. I mean, there's a disconnect, and I mentioned this before. It's disheartening to me. You're telling me one thing, and you're doing another. And there's constant excuse. I'd like to see extreme ownership. Everything, as a leader, you take the blame for, and you give everybody else the credit for. I never see that. I've never heard one person state to us here, yeah, you know what, there's problems with the communication system. We really need to figure this out. Let's work together as a group to do so. Doesn't happen. We get met with defensive points and vague challenges. And more importantly, we don't have clear factual evidence of what's being done next. That's it.
thank you, Mark.
I think you know me by now.
We already spoke, Mrs. Noonan. You have to be, is that on a typically new topic? You already spoke once about fair share housing.
I'm not talking about fair share housing.
We have 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Megan? Marianne Noonan, 110?
Thank you.
Okay. Just furtherance, this is my only comment. Given the amateur hour preparations for choosing the bidder, it is perhaps not unsurprising that such an unprofessional group was chosen. How did you allow such a company, being MRI...
Sorry, that wasn't meant for you, Marianne. I apologize.
I'm sorry?
No, go ahead, continue.
Okay. How did you allow such a company, being MRI, to come to Long Hill? And are we, the residents, supposed to believe any of their findings or follow their recommendations. It is documented that MRI was not in possession of even the most basic facts, and I'll give you 3 pointers. Number 1, they were not aware of any statutes or laws governing the police departments in New Jersey. This firm came from New Hampshire. Number 2, they did not know how a chief is appointed in New Jersey. Number 3, they did not know the form of government in Long Hill Township. Furthermore to this, and I'll be quick to keep to my 3 minutes, this is more disconcerting. And again, I never thought I would have to come up here again. It's just so upsetting to me, okay? They did not show up for scheduled interviews with 2 fire chiefs. They did not give them the courtesy of a phone call. They did not talk to everyone in the Long Hill Township Police Departments. One representative from MRI, and my husband kind of said maybe you should change this a little bit, but no. This was a direct quote. One representative from MRI called the chief a dick. Okay? This is a professional man in blue calling a chief a dick. I have never in my corporate life, in my public life, for anyone, and this is not hearsay, okay? It was witnessed by quite a few people. They gave the chief legal advice about how he should sue the township. Interesting, right? They told the chief to actually visit their website to look for a job as a chief elsewhere, as if it was a done deal. I ask you, shaking my head again. They asked inappropriate questions of employees, one of whom was a woman who works as an administrator, and they specifically asked this woman when she plans on retiring. At National Night Out, they asked random residents who was to blame, the chief or the administrator. Lastly, this question was also posed to volunteers and township employees, many of whom didn't know what was being referred to. I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank
Good evening, Frank Liberato, Heritage Road, Millington. I did have some questions on the study, but I know you're not going to answer any, so I'm going to save you the trouble on that. Really just 2 issues I wanted to bring up. As far as, were you willing to discuss the best purchasing practices that were used? Because I was not able to find an RFP for the $30,000. I know they had done that prior when Neil Henry was here, and I didn't know if our policy had changed as far as, you know, solicitations, because it kind of appeared in the emails that this was really urgent. And I know you won't answer a question about the urgency, but I just want to know, you know, we always discuss best procedures and policy and, you know, following things by the letter. I just didn't know if there was an exception made for this because this was of urgency.
We hired MRI, and that's all I'm saying.
All right. That's fine. You're entitled
Jack will give it-
you're
Jack
entitled
will
to
give it.
answer that.
I don't know best practices, but the only legal requirement is for contracts between the quote amount, which is $6,600, and the bid amount, which is $44,000, is that you get 2 quotes. There's no requirement for formal RFPs. And again, I'm just limiting my comment to the legal requirements, and they were complied with in this case.
Jack, you're the attorney. I will take your lead on that. The second item I want to talk about, if someone could just explain to me, traditionally, I've been coming to quite a few meetings, and Chief used to sit over here, and you guys would engage him, he would talk about what's going on, and now he's sitting there in the back in civilian clothes. So can someone explain to me what has changed with the procedure with this chief, why you guys aren't including him with your liaison reports up here where, you go back for it? Like when you talked about the ambulance, he would normally have probably commented on that, and we would have went back and forth and heard what the police side of the, discussion is, and, now he's no longer here.
Well, we're not discussing personnel matters in public.
Well, I wasn't asking like specific. I just wondering if there was a change in policy, like a township policy, where you don't have, that department heads can't, speak or comment at a meeting, Because when you talk of policemen or even the fire department, you would have the fire department here if they were discussing about the fire department or public works. We have public works here. So I was just trying to get to the root of what's changed here with this chief, why we no longer have, him involved here and allowed here for the public to ask questions.
I answered your question.
So if I have a question for him, I could ask from here, you're saying, in the open public, or he's not allowed to talk?
I gave you my answer. We're not discussing that.
I think you said a lot just the way you answered the question. Thank you.
You're welcome, as always.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Good evening. My name is Charles Reynolds. I live at Heritage Road. I lived there 41 years. I've heard all your support at the last meeting for the police department and how we love the police department. So I made a donation to the PBA, and given the fact that the mayor, the township committee, the township administrator work so well with Chief Naga and his department and have him involved with meetings and emails, and we don't tie his hands, and he comes to meetings in his uniform. You've done such a great job, in particular the mayor and the administrator. I want to present this sign that you can place out front of the building. It states, "We support the Long Hill Township Police." Given your new decorum process, I don't know how I get this sign to you because of these and everything else. So what do I do, Mayor? Is she allowed to reach over, or does she come over, or how do we do it?
You can approach.
Okay, here you go. Beyond my presentation, I've got 3 topics tonight. One is defunding the police. I've come to many meetings. It's my understanding that we received $447,000 of American Rescue Funds. And anything that I state in the next few sentences, if I'm wrong, please correct me. It's my understanding that monies were put into the Police Department Compensation Fund for payment of the officers during the pandemic. Then, the funds were for, well, correct me if I'm wrong, because people said it, but let me finish first. Then monies were transferred to defund the police. We took $300,000 and we are going to create graphic records, electronic records of all our records here so people can work from home. but we did defund the police after put the 447,000.
What did you defund? I'm curious.
Curious. Let me explain the math. You're the financial guy, right? Correct?
Well, yeah, so.
So I asked multiple times to put the $447,000 for American Rescue into stormwater management. It was told here when the administrator sat over here that we deposited those monies in police compensation for COVID-19. Where did the money go?
You can answer. I don't know the answer.
So I believe what I said is we took the COVID money that you're talking about, the 400, the half of it, the first half.
447,000.
Right, the first half. And because of, and I believe the CFO is here and explained it better than I can.
Well, you're well qualified.
Well, thank you. He put it in police salaries because that is how you have to do it in
Police
Trenton.
salaries.
However, that replaced the money that we budgeted for police salaries because we were able to then use that money for capital, for fire trucks, for police equipment, for recreation, and for DPW. So essentially, what happened is we took that money from COVID and we used it for public safety, recreation, and DPW capital purchases. Because of a budgeting mechanism, the way Trenton and the federal government.
I read the code.
And with the way they require you to apply it to your budget, we had to apply it to salaries. But the net is that money was used indirectly to buy capital purchases for police, fire, rec, and DPW.
So it was stated that the 447,000 at the meeting was put for police salaries. Is that correct?
I just explained.
I'm at yes or no? Thank you. It's yes. So when your question, Mr. Pashera, about what happened with the monies, so we put in $447,000 for police salaries. Then the chief's budget was cut. He had to cut $15,000 or $20,000. We cut out the accreditation. So when I say you defunded the police, if you put in $447,000 and you say cut your budget, Mr. Chief, that means you defunded the police.
It's not
But
all right, let's not beat it to death, okay?
The police budget was not cut.
It's actually law.
Wait a minute. We defunded the accreditation.
Stop using that silly word. It was not defunded.
What was it?
I don't know. What was the increase, Scott? I wasn't in the budget.
Or we increased the budget. We can't, wait a minute. You don't have $6,000 for flags.
Got an answer for you. It increased about 5.8%.
The police budget increased, Scott's
Along
getting
with every other department. And Chuck, the accreditation is funded through October this year.
Great, we're going to get it.
Well,
All right.
wait a second, stop. In order to get the accreditation, we have to actually do the work for it. And we had a problem with that. We talked about that in the budget session. And I asked the chief about that, and he said they weren't going to make it. What we didn't fund was what happens after October. Now, I want to remind you of something. That was $35,000 we spent over 3 years for a services contract to help with accreditation. It wasn't the accreditation work, it was a services contract to help with it. And we never had that before. That was something that, Brendan, I think you asked for that in 2019, the Rogers Group to help the chief, right? Prior to that, every police department did it by hand. So you're misleading everybody when you say that we defunded accreditation. And what I said at the last meeting was, if we can't get it done, we're not going to fund it. Now, if we turned around, we got it done, and the chief can pursue reinstatement on this, we'll absolutely go get the money.
Did we find the $6,000 for the flags?
The chief is looking at that. Hold on.
Sorry,
Stop.
I apologize.
Oh.
The right hand doesn't know what the left hand's doing.
Come on. The chief is looking for some money for that, something from the state. What, Nancy, what was the name of that?
Forfeiture fund from the
Forfeiture
prosecutor's
funds.
office.
Once we get an answer on that, whether or not we can use that, if we can't use that, then we'll have to look at a particular line item budget in his budget where that can be done. And the chief and I exchanged emails this week. I suggested that he have a backup plan for another line item in his budget.
Second topic tonight is diversion.
You have, Chuck, you're well
Well,
over
no,
your
wait a
10
minute.
minutes. No, let
They've
him go,
they've
let
been
him go.
answering questions.
I'm fine, let him
All
go.
right, go ahead.
Thank you. No, Chuck, thank me. I said let
Thank
you
you,
go.
thank you. All right, diversion. Where do we stand on diversion of Central Park? Just to remind the group here and the people at home, 5 years ago, we spent $3.5 million to buy Central Park with no access to the park. 5 years.
She has an answer for you.
Let me finish. She can answer. So, diversion was denied because we were getting swampland for Valley Road, and we don't know much sure what we're doing. But if we would have started eminent domain 5 years ago, we'd have had the property by now. Okay? We would have had the property by now. I called the DEP and said, where are we in diversion? Because I know the person that looked at it. You've submitted nothing. When they rejected the diversion, you have submitted nothing back to the state. Please, don't tell me that the owner of the property is holding a gun to our head, what happened with elite properties in the redevelopment zone at Thermoplastics. Please don't tell me that.
There is an application that will be before the planning board at some point in the near future, if it's not there already. And if
Which
that-
planning board, this one?
Yes. And if that plan is approved, then we will have access to the park without the need for a diversion.
When's that going to be?
When the developer chooses to submit the application.
Okay, my last topic is the ordinance tonight about the business district, commercial district. I've got some handouts that I've got 5 copies, and I'd like to somehow convey them, but stay in decorum. Now, if anybody would like some of these copies, you can hand them out for me, I'd appreciate it. Now, to demonstrate the effect on May 25th, this is about the size, this chart here is about the size of this screen. Okay, no one can see it. I colored this red and blue. Is anybody colorblind? Good. Is anybody at the council colorblind?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
We'll never admit it.
Page 1 are the current densities in the town, from highest to lowest. I'll just read one, or a couple. The first one was Cooper Lane. Let's see, that's 3.74 units an acre. Today's proposal wants to put 15 units an acre. That's not on your chart, that's off the charts, but for the residents here, it's this dotted red chart here. 15 units an acre. The red diagrams in front of you are what you approved in your administration. Let me read those to you. Prism, 11.76. Gillette Crossing, 12.04. And the Rocker property, 12.83. Only Sterling Manor went higher than the three properties you approved in your administration. Where has our town gone? Do you want to look like Dewey Meadows? Okay, on page 2, that's the lower half of the chart. Those are the building heights in this town. The first one was 35 feet in 2017. 2018, you went to 45. You went to 3 stories. 2020, you went to 50 feet, 3 stories. And tonight you propose 55 feet with 4 stories. The people in the audience are colorblind. The red goes from 2.5 to 4. That's a 60% increase in building height, building stories. Okay? You went from 55 feet, 35 feet to 55. That is a 57% increase in height. That's what you're proposing. I thought when I came here 41 years ago, we were a rural community. We are a suburban community. You can say, oh, it's affordable housing. Guess what? I read the regulations. There are no building height requirements, and there's no density requirements in the regulations. So why would you increase this from 35 feet to 55 feet? Next point. You approved Gillette crossings, 55 feet, 50 feet. Guess how high the building is? From ground to peak, a mere 59 feet 1 inch. What are you doing to this town? Do you want us to look like Dewey Meadows or Berkeley Heights? Please do not approve this first reading tonight of the business district. It's horrible. 15 units an acre? What are you thinking about? 55 feet, height, 4 stories? It's not for me. If you want to respond to any of that, I'd love to hear it.
No, thank you, Chuck.
Just wanted to ask a quick question to Scott, Mark Giovanni, Heritage Road. Scott, so to the point that you just said, you were talking about the accreditation, right? So Chief Naga, when he came on, I think it was 2019, right? And you were saying that before that, we hadn't spent any money budgetarily to get through the accreditation process. Is that correct?
I didn't say that.
Okay. Then I misunderstood. You were saying that we've spent $35 under Chief Naga in order to help us get the accreditations, not to pay for the accreditations, but the consultations. How much? Okay, so what did I miss then?
This was the first time that we used, and Brendan, feel free to chime in because you helped with that. That's when we secured the services of the Rogers Group, correct?
We, in 2019, I believe it was.
What's the first time?
It might have been it was the first time, but the reason we had several retirements of key personnel, and this is a very intensive process.
Yeah.
And so the Rogers Group is well known in the state. They do this not just for Long Hill, but they do it for a number of different police departments. Okay. And so that's why they were brought in. They were the preeminent vendor for police accreditation, and that's why we brought them in 2019.
That was kind of my question, because the way I understood it is that before Chief Naga, we hadn't paid for a consultant like that, but now we are. But to your point, the reason being is that retirements, different skill sets, et cetera, are now requiring us to do that.
Exactly. That's exactly it.
They're not requiring us to do it. It's
Well, we
great-
wouldn't be able to do it. We don't have the resources or the skill sets probably to do with maybe some of the newer hires. I don't know. Why would they not be able to do it?
Be very careful, the
Yeah.
impression you're trying to set here.
What's
It's
that?
very helpful to have these folks. And as
Yeah.
Brendan said, yeah, we've had some retirements, and it's a difficult process. And we, from what I can tell, we have some people doing it for the first time,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And so it's a good service.
Yeah.
Now, as far as if we ever used them before, I think there might have been one other instance, maybe 6 or 7 years ago, when they helped us when we converted from, what is it, CALIA to NJSCOP or something like that.
I don't know about that.
Right, but, look, do you know what accreditation is?
Yes, I do.
Tell me.
It's basically the process that we use. They have two different solutions and two different primaries. CALIA, which is one of them, And I've talked to you about this before.
Wait,
And the accreditation itself.
That's not what I'm asking. Tell
Okay.
me exactly what is an accredited police department?
An accredited police department is a department that can follow the standards, policies, procedures, training, et cetera, show they have operational command of their environment based upon the presets set by CALIA and other organizations. Now, there's a process to go through that. They have to set and state what those are. At the end of the day, it's supposed to show that you have the appropriate standards, that your policemen are trained on these things, and that at the end of the day, by doing these things, you have an optimized and efficient police force.
So there's about 50 policies that a police department operates by, more or
Yep.
less. There's something like 112 best practices.
Correct.
And each of those has to get a check mark into them by an accrediting body
Yep.
for you to be considered accredited and to get a document like this.
Yep.
Right? To get that accreditation, you need a couple of things. Number one, you need policies
Mm-hmm.
that are up to date and in line, and those change all the time because
Yeah.
you get these directives down from the Attorney General of the state of New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
There may be some things that you have to accommodate in town. At the end of the day, those policies have to conform to the 112
Yeah. Understood.
best practices.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Are you misunderstanding my point? I'm not saying that you shouldn't be spending the money. I'm not certain if you're saying
I
that.
didn't finish.
Okay.
So it's one thing having the policies in place.
Yep.
And the policies have to be up to date. It's another thing to be able to prove that you have the policies in place.
Yeah, which is what the audit is that they do.
Right, and so you need to provide evidence and supply that with your application. That evidence could be receipts for work that's been done, it could be pictures, it could be
Yeah.
cases with redacted stuff in it, it could be a number of things,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so what Rogers Group does, they kind of keep a radar out on the Attorney General. They have our policies, they edit them, they change them, they send them into the police department. Those are approved, or there's a back and forth, and they go into our automated system.
Mhm.
And then what's on our department is to provide the proof.
Yeah.
And they help us pull the stuff together,
Mhm.
right? And so there's the context of the service that's provided.
I know exactly what they do. I'm glad that we have them. My point is that you're noting that you're the one that said it. Before Naga, we didn't do this, now we do it. And my question, and I think you guys answered it, is why? I didn't want this to be made as to say, well, Chief Naga's now spending more money than we should. I don't want that optic to be given.
No.
Okay, that's the way it came off in my mind. That's all I'm saying.
Let me say, we've been accredited since 1985.
For New Jersey, 2001 since CALIA.
The folks that work at Rogers Group, they learned everything they learned from Long Hill,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I'm familiar, trust me, I'm familiar with it. I think it's a great thing.
All right, so I guess right now at this point, I'm kind of missing your point that you wanted to make.
I was asking the reason why you're the one that made the statement and called out that we didn't do this before Chief
I
Naga.
made the statements because
And I'm just curious
there was
as to
an
why.
erroneous statement made that we defunded.
No, I'm not, listen, I'm speaking on my behalf. No one else speaks for me. I'm not associated to anybody else's thoughts except my own. I asked the question based upon what
All
you
right,
said.
well, I'm clearing the record. The
Okay.
reason that we don't have accreditation is not because it was defunded.
Yes, I'm not
All
saying
right.
that it is.
Thank you, okay. We're
All
good.
right, thank you.
Thank
I
Thank you.
And Mark, I also want to say, I appreciate the fact that you did your research on this.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, I appreciate you guys when you do that too. Thank you.
Come on up.
My name is Carol Parasa. As of last Sunday, I will have lived in Long Hill Township 80 years. Last night, I planned to attend a planning board meeting because they were discussing the historic element of the master plan. First of all, let me compliment them because they actually created a product, an outline of a product that I think was well thought out and reasonable, and we probably are actually going to move along with that project. However, because the meeting was held electronically, because they were struggling to get a quorum in the room, it was supposed to be televised. It was not. I am very confused still about the communications, about who is responsible for what and why. But I was at home when I couldn't find it on the television for about 10 minutes. I then dragged out my computer and finally got on and missed the first 15 minutes of the very reason I went to watch the meeting. So my first question, I guess, is who's responsible?
Planning board, isn't it?
No, I can't.
Oh, go ahead.
You're saying who's responsible for
Who's
it not getting on TV?
Well, I
Right.
understand there's two things. There's content and there's the technology. So I don't know if this was a content issue or technological issue, but
It was a technology issue, and you know that we've struggled with that even since getting the new equipment. Unfortunately, the new equipment, I guess it was bought at less than, it was bought at a bargain price, and so it was not everything that we needed in order to make it work well. And honestly, at the time, it couldn't be anticipated that we'd have Zoom and things like that. So we have looked into, as you know, we have since looked into the bigger screen TVs, the better Zoom interaction. When you watch this meeting on a rerun and people ask questions from Zoom, there's a terrible echo. The sound system isn't working right. There are quite a few things that need to be upgraded. So I have solicited quotes from companies to put in the big screen TVs, upgrade the system so that we don't have the lags like we did yesterday and in previous weeks. The first quote that I got was a little over $40,000. And, this was an expensive system to begin with. We had not budgeted for that. So I solicited 2 more quotes. Unfortunately, they probably came out and looked at the system well over a month ago, and I'm still waiting for the quotes. So once we are able to figure out how much it's going to cost and how we're going to fund it, then we will upgrade the system. And fortunately, you will not have that problem anymore, but unfortunately, until then, we're doing the best we can to try and work with the Teleview person, who's ever running the meeting, and trying to get them on live, whether they're Zoom or here in this meeting. Unfortunately, sometimes glitches happen. I think the good thing for you is I believe that on rerun, that entire meeting will be able to be seen.
yes, I understand that.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate.
I'm basically complaining.
No,
I'm
I
here to
know, I know.
I'm
that-
whining or whatever.
Right, it should have been available on TV live. And like I said, hopefully when we, get all the kinks out, we won't have these problems anymore.
Okay. Now, I understand there's a communications committee that's responsible for the techie part of it. I can't even use my cell phone, so I'm not really one to. Anyway, but who is responsible for content? I never get an answer about
For
it.
content?
Yeah.
We've had these discussions before.
Yeah, I know, but I still don't know
always
who's
looking.
responsible for content.
Well, I don't know that anybody's responsible for content. We have the library that we use, that we came with the system, that we put those extra shows on. We've hired that company, DNS, and they schedule those shows throughout the week. Our meetings, the Board of Ed meetings and the 2 Land Use Board meetings also get shown, so they're scheduled in. Like I told you, we're always looking for new content, and I'm waiting I've never heard back. I was hoping you would help be a conduit. I've never heard back from Watchung Hills High School to see if we could show their sporting events. We'd love to put those on.
You've contacted them?
I did contact them.
You contacted their communications committee? You contacted the
No,
superintendent?
I contacted the business administrator. Tim Stice.
Tim Size. Okay. Because that was going to be my next question. The new
We'd love
school
to.
year is coming, and I can watch sporting events and concerts from all the surrounding towns,
So
but
concerts, he said, we're not allowed to do. We're not allowed to put concerts on. It's a licensing issue, and I think if I recall, it was a while ago, I think if I recall, because they pay for the license, most of those concerts are songs that have licensing requirements. So they pay for a license, and then we can't rebroadcast it because we don't have a license. I believe that's the way that works. But we could play sporting events. We'd love to. We're always looking for new content.
Well, I'm hoping we proceed with that, although there must be something else because
God bless you.
I watch Bernards Township's, I watch their concerts, and I watch Randolph and other towns. I see their concerts, so somehow there must be a way. But thank you for listening to me whine tonight, as the Johnny Cash song went.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Katie McLennan, another Chestnut Hill resident, 342. More of an observation than a question. I've lived in Long Hill for 8 years. I've managed the Long Hill Facebook page for 3 or 4 years. And in the list of all the things that everyone in this town is concerned about, the last thing that people would ever complain about or wonder about the efficiency of running is the police department. No, it doesn't matter what anyone's politics are, what anyone's stance on almost 99% of the things in this town. Our police department is run beautifully. Everyone feels safe, and everyone, the fact that we're spending $30,000 investigating them when there's a litany of other things that everyone in this town is concerned about bothers me as a taxpayer. Why we have all these empty buildings? Why isn't the community committee looking into bringing more businesses in town? Why are businesses that want to come here not able to open because of legal problems with getting approvals? There should be someone on the committee that's walking them through this hand-holding so we get more taxes paid by someone other than the people that live in the houses here. Those are my concerns. My concerns are not with Chief Naga, not with the police department. And I ask you that if you're going to do studies, listen to the taxpayers and what we're worried about, because we're not worried about the police. Thank you.
Anybody else from the public? Megan, anybody online? Oh, hold on. Yeah, you're...
Charles Arenowitz, Millington. I also did some research on the Rogers Group. Researched their business entity records, looked at their staff, what kind of professionals they have since we've hired them over the years. And I just wanted to make you aware that one of their professionals on their staff is a gentleman by the name of Michaels Peoples. Just so keep that in mind.
Thank you, Chuck. We are aware of that, Chuck.
Good for you.
Thank you.
Donna Ruggiero, 293 Main Avenue, Sterling. I want to personally thank Chief Naga and his department for the safe environment they do provide this community. I can tell you as an employee of the Township of Millburn, there is no police presence. People are held up at gunpoint for their cars, and that doesn't happen here. There are home invasions, and you really have to be a little more considerate and stop the witch hunt, okay? Besides the fact that the town doesn't have money to complete the other half of Essex Street when there's holes by the storm drains, and the lack of response for my reaching out for various information that has not come from either the mayor, the administrator, or her assistant. So I just want to say, on the record that everyone in this township should be appreciative of the police department that we have here, because everyone knows not to speed through this town, and they have a good reputation.
Megan, anybody online?
Yes, there's a Mr. Pratt that would like to speak, so I'm going to allow you to talk. Mr. Pratt, can you hear us?
Hello? Hold on, Gary, hold on a second.
Okay.
Hold on, Mr. Pratt. Crank it up a little bit more, Megan, please.
Might be his mic.
Oh, okay.
I'm just speaking.
Mr. Pratt, just speak a little louder. Megan's got it cranked up pretty high.
Okay. I've never been told that I wasn't loud enough, so. I first have a question that I've never observed before, and this is about what appears to be, in my mind, an ADA violation. I am not hearing, the audio is being cut out for anything going on in the audience. So I am not hearing the same experience as a person physically able to attend the meeting. And I would like a response to that.
Mr. Pratt, it's tough with the audience because you've been in the courtroom before, I know you have. And there's the microphone right at the podium. So really, there's no mics in the audience to pick up sound. So that's probably why you can't hear people talking unless they're up at the microphone or sitting up at the dais in front of a microphone.
No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the fact that as soon as a person stops speaking at the podium, as soon as the audience reacts, the sound is cut off.
Oh, that's...
And that is not fair to me because everyone there is able to hear that reaction, but it's arbitrarily not being transmitted online.
I understand your question. Go ahead.
Pause.
Yeah, there's nobody's hitting, Mr. Pratt, nobody's hitting a mute button or anything. I think it's just a function of the acoustics and microphone radius or the range it has at the podium. So nobody's doing anything manually to cut off the sound or mute it.
I find that difficult to believe, and I'll tell you why. The reason is that the audience was applauding in response to something that someone said, and the sound was immediately cut off. Then when the next speaker started to speak, I could see that their lips were moving, but I couldn't hear it because someone had, in fact, flipped a switch and hadn't flipped it back.
So, Gary, this is Guy. You have settings on, and I'm not an expert on Zoom, but you have settings on your Zoom side. You may have to turn up the audio there. There's a, I don't know, Scott, can you walk them through that?
We don't have a computer in front of us.
No, but I'm saying they're Scott is going to call you tomorrow, Gary.
Well, Mr. Pratt, by example, last time you came on about an hour or so ago, we heard you fine, loud and clear, and the volume was the same range on our end as it was before. So it might be something on your end. I'm not sure, but we heard you better before as well than we hear you now.
Okay, I'm going to ask you to have someone from the committee or the staff watch the recording of this meeting watch it back on Zoom, because I'm assuming the meeting is recorded on Zoom, and if so, I think you will find what I'm talking about. But let's move on, because I have much more important things.
Just real quick, Mr. Pratt, so you know, on Zoom it's not recorded, but Megan can play back the meeting and watch it on, I guess, another way, but it's not recorded on Zoom.
It'll be on our website.
On the website, but it's not recorded on Zoom. So just so you know, okay, now you can get into your question. I'm sorry.
All right, that's okay. Thank you. So I'm concerned. I have not attended a meeting for several months because of health issues, but I'm just flabbergasted by what I'm seeing. I don't understand at all how it is that a resident can ask a question and just be told flat out, we're not talking about that. And it's done in a very rude, arrogant, condescending way. That's not right. What happened to accountability? what happened, why don't we have the right as taxpayers to ask, why are we doing this study? And the committee well, actually, I didn't hear the committee say we're not answering the questions. I heard the mayor say we're not answering questions. But I don't understand why we don't have the right to understand how our tax dollars are being spent.
Mr. Pratt, I'm sorry. I apologize if I came off that way. I sincerely do. There are questions, sometimes, as you know, we can't answer for personnel reasons or privilege or things like that. As to the study, I read this. I don't know if you heard me read the statement in the beginning. However, at this point, at least in my position, is there's nothing really to talk about. There's nothing in writing to comment on. So my position, I want to wait and see what comes out before anybody comments on it, because I don't know what it's going to say. So it's premature to be very speculative at this point to make a comment about something we haven't seen. So that's my answer. I hope that explains it to you.
Well, except for the fact that you as a committee chose to spend our tax dollars on something that I'm sure, it's very interesting on Facebook. I often comment to people that complain about things that it's very important. Just posting on Facebook doesn't do anything. Attending meetings is where things get done. And it used to be that there was a healthy dialogue, but that's not what I'm seeing. I'm not talking about conclusions of a study that hasn't even happened yet, or is in progress, I should say. But what I'm talking about is the fact that the township committee can spend $30,000 and that the committee feels that we don't have the right to know why. That really bothers me. And you'll do whatever you want with that. But the other thing that I need to say is that the reason I brought up Facebook is I also tell people get upset because committee members don't respond to Facebook. I totally understand that. That's not, that's not in your job description. There's no legal requirement for you to do that. However, I do notice that committee members do respond when they find that it's in their best interest. So they'll respond about positive things, but when people are complaining about the way that we feel the chief is being treated, the shooting range, all of these things, then it's crickets. So it's disappointing that the township committee members decide to be very selective in what they respond to. On the other hand, if they're responding to things, that means they're seeing things. And it appears to me that the committee is not listening to what residents are saying. I am going to speak for my wife and I. We are strong supporters of the chief. We are strong supporters of the police department. As many of you know, my wife is blind. That we were at a township committee meeting about a year or so ago, and the chief would always come over and talk to us. And as we were leaving one night, he asked us, how you doing? And my wife was getting a new guide dog, and we knew that the traffic light at Valley and Mountain was being replaced by the county. So my wife asked the chief if he could intercede to see if we could get the talking audio, the walk system, so that it does a countdown and a visually impaired person is able to know when the traffic light is favorable for them to cross. The chief said, I have to go through the county let me get back to you. He got back to us in a day. He explained that they had to get a part. It was going to take a while. He's gone out of his way to take care of us. And the fact that, you know, you can talk about all these personnel matters and the things you can talk about, the things you can't talk about. But there are things that are just from watching this meeting tonight. The fact that you now have the township administrator front and center as opposed to over in the corner, and you have, and no offense, Al, but you have the DPW director interacting with the committee, and yet you tell the chief, no, you can't talk and all that. Well, sure looks like discrimination to me, and it also looks like we as taxpayers are not getting the benefit of the experience and knowledge that the chief has and that we are paying for. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pratt.
Thank you.
Megan, anyone else with their hand raised?
I don't see anyone, Mayor.
Thank you. Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'd like to say something.
Oh, sorry, Don, I didn't see you.
A couple more people.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Don, I didn't see you.
At first, I wasn't planning to come up here, but a lot of the things I've been hearing tonight.
Wait, just to say your name.
Sorry, Donna
I know who you
Fucci,
are.
350 Mercer over in Sterling, 60-year resident of Long Hill. First of all, having the chief not sitting in that chair in uniform is not a good look. Okay. The committee, I guess, hedging questions. I mean, I realize it was not part of the agenda tonight, but hedging questions regarding the police department, shutting down Brendan when he was about to say something. It just doesn't set right. And I've known, I've known many people on the police force, and Chief Naga has been, and his team are exemplary. And the fact that there's a quote-unquote study going on, I don't buy that it's for the committee to learn about police processes, whatever. You could spend time with the police and actually go through all that. In my opinion, and I've seen this in many cases, when somebody's brought in for a study, it is indeed a witch hunt. And it's a matter of, and I say this because of one thing, National Night Out. We saw you there, saw Vic there. I was stopped, and I actually went to, get one of the shirts they were giving out. And I was asked by your study team a host of questions. And one of the things that they had said to me was, first of all, it was like, the guy that, the officer, or I don't know if he's a former officer, current officer, but he said he had been on the force for New Hampshire, and, he goes, much bigger than your town, obviously, so I'm, well qualified. To me, that doesn't make you well qualified, that just, means you have a bigger area to cover. Like Mary Ann Noonan said, they don't know anything about New Jersey policing. They even asked me at one point if I were to make a decision about the chief or whoever the adversarial person is, and they make that very clear, who would I choose? That doesn't seem, that seems so personal that you can't pass that off to me as this being some kind of random study that needed to be done. Well, in all of the years of policing in Passaic Township, I don't recall a study ever being done like this. So this is a personnel issue, and a personnel issue only. You can't walk away from that fact, and you don't have to answer me. Choose not to answer me, don't answer me, but I'm just telling you this. It is not a good look for the committee, and it's not a good look to the townspeople. That's all I got to tell you. That's all I've got to say.
Thank you, Donna.
Thank you.
Good to see you moving, Albert.
Not too fast.
Still faster than Nick.
Al Pepe, High Street, resident for 63 years in the town. I just want to say, a couple months ago, I was involved in a bike accident in Upper Sterling. And I just have to say that I appreciate the police department and the first aid squad. When you're laying in the middle of the street and your hip is in 3 different pieces and they're there, you come to appreciate that. So thank you, police department and first aid squad. Thank you very much. I just have one question. So you're saying we're going to wait for the results of the study. I guess my question is what prompted you to commission this study in the first place?
I'm not being rude. Were you here at the beginning of the meeting?
I was here, yeah.
Okay, did you hear what I wrote or read?
Yeah.
That's...
But didn't explain why you commissioned it. Is there improprieties?
I don't know. That's why we commissioned
Are we
the
going to
study.
do the same thing for DPW?
I don't know.
Or financial?
Of who? I couldn't hear you.
Or any of the other parts of town government?
It's possible, sure. I mean, we haven't talked about it, but it's possible.
I haven't heard a clear answer on why it's being commissioned.
So Al, can I answer your second part of your question? We have spoken in public, and you may or may not have seen that. We are looking into hiring a human resources function. Now, we're trying to do it in a shared service with surrounding towns. That hasn't come to fruition. But I know I strongly believe, and I can't speak for the other members of the committee, I think we need a human resources function in town. I don't know if town hall employees agree or don't agree, but that would be a decision that the township committee would make. And for me, it's no different than what this study is doing with the police department. I have spoken on the record several times. 2 of the things I'd like to find out is exactly what happened. It's been stated in public that there was an issue with the radios and the repeaters. I don't know where responsibility for that issue lies. If it comes back to the township committee, okay. And I think to some resident who said it earlier, let's find out where the responsibility lies. And the same thing with the accreditation that Scott spoke with earlier. I don't understand why we were able to do the accreditation in years past as opposed to now. So personally, I like the idea of an objective set of eyes and to take a peek at that. I mean, I know there's a lot of police officers here tonight. I will personally thank you. I think you are phenomenal. I think you do a great job. And in no way is what, for me, is this study meant to disrespect you. And if you feel that way, I'm sorry. It's certainly not intended that way. You know, when you work for a company, there are always reviews. There are always consultant reports. I didn't necessarily always like the review that I would receive, but you accept it. And maybe it's going to be a glowing review or report in this study. I don't know. But it will be a public document, and you can judge for yourself.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Al.
Thank you.
You know, one thing, Guy, both of the things that you mentioned there, you could have easily ascertained without spending $30,000. That information's free. You just had to reach out and talk to the appropriate people.
Joseph Bartolotta, 263 Union Street. You guys sit up here and you round talk. You insult our intelligence, right? You evade our questions. He asked you a question as to why it was commissioned. Did you have complaints from the residents? Have you? Can anyone answer here? Have you had concerns from residents? I'm asking you to, I'm asking all of you to answer that.
I gave you the answer.
No, you didn't give me the answer. I'm going to pose a question to each one of you. You, Mr. Ray, have you had, you, Mr. Persocia, any concerns from the residents?
A number of concerns about the radios and the
No.
schools.
The radios and that's a different issue. That's not what this is about. I asked you a question, and I want you to answer me.
I answered
Have you had her? No, you didn't answer it.
Just answered
So
it.
then
That's
you
my
answered it.
answer.
Mayor, have you had concerns from residents?
Yeah, clearly, you've been at the meetings. Joe, you watched the meetings.
What- and what were their
People go
concerns?
past radios, staffing.
I'm talking about, that's not commissioning a study to look at the police department. You commission a study to look at the radios. That's what you look at. You, Vic? You, Scott? Do you have any concerns from residents pertaining to the chief or any of his members on the department?
Joe, that's a loaded question. What's the responsibility of this committee?
That's not a loaded question. I asked you.
I'm asking you a question now. What's the responsibility of this committee?
Answer-
No, I have not gotten any complaints about the chief. Now,
Okay.
what is the responsibility?
So then why
Wait,
is-
Wait, I'm asking you a question. What is the responsibility of this committee?
To look out for the residents of the Long Hill Township.
By oversight.
Correct. So my next question is, are you going to the administrator's office and her staff and doing the conducting? Are you going to Al's? Because I'm going to tell you, you should go through all of them. All of them, right? You're going to commission all these studies? Then go across the board. Clean house. Clean house. Do it right. Because all you guys do is sit up here, you don't even make a decision. In the beginning of tonight, you hear the shooting range, which was not even a shooting range. It was proposed how it was explained. You allowed an attorney to come up here and go off script, talking about whether the guy's in violations of running his business, when that had nothing to do with the topic of discussion. It was pertaining to a shooting range, and you allowed that. You were wrong for that, and you know that.
You know, I just, with regards to the study, I probably have obtained 60 OPR requests. Sorry. But also from other people. What I find for $30,000, this study is only based on historical data. The historical period seems to have been established that Chief Naga took position. Okay? So if we have an issue with regards to radio communications, let's go a little deeper. And Guy, you sent me that 20-year report. Why are we not, the report from the county?
Okay,
Okay, you CC'd Mayor Dorsey.
correct.
That was a 20-year study. So why is the scope of this study for 30,000 only going back to the period to which Chief Naga was hired? Can you answer me that?
I didn't realize the scope of the study was limited.
It was.
By who?
Read it.
All right, nobody ever said to me, or the MRI people ever said the scope was limited to X, Y, Z.
Look at the OPRs.
Well, we'll see what the study says.
Because it's commencing from a period of 2018, and this is where what really piques my curiosity, because it's an indication that, and I hate blaming people, I hate finger pointing, this is not my personality, but Guy, okay, you were involved prior to that. Why are they not doing a historical study if it's about the radios?
If I remember correctly, though, the study that we
It was 20
received-
years.
No, I want to make sure I'm on the same page with you. The study we received from Director Peoples, sorry about that.
Yes.
Director Peoples was when Long Hill Township switched to the county dispatch. So I don't know where the 20 years come from.
It stipulates as a 20-year study. It goes back to 2004 in data, okay? And, you know, if you want to make any type of comparisons, if you want to put anything in a chart form, if you want to put anything, and it just happened, random sampling, I was an auditor. I was on Wall Street. You guys know my background, okay? But it was very disturbing that of all the statistical data that they pulled out, they only made reference to those 750 calls which I do want to comment again. Joe Liberato sent me some Oprah requests, took a look at it. There was a full disclaimer that the county could not provide us with any of this call information. Hence, I have it in writing. I sent every one of you a copy of the email. Please check if you're not reading my emails, I hope you will go back. And then going forward, so they happen to utilize one period to prove 750. There was no historical data with anything with the numbers. You put in a chart. You have to do either random sampling or, and then to find out and read the Echo Sentinel to see that that was in print, that it stipulated 750 calls. And I sent you, Mr. Lavender, and Guy, I sent you
Yes, you did.
specifically an email to please redact that Echo Sentinel piece. Because basically, you just opened a can of worms to all of our public, showing our weaknesses. And we have no backup plan. We have no idea if this is going to even work. What is your response?
My response is I'm quite sure, and the editor of the Echo Sentinel is sitting right up front, I don't think we get to redact what they write. If I could, I might redact some things you might say
Well, actually,
negatively about me in the future, but...
I would just like to comment. I just sent an email to Nicole because she had originated it, and I said it's not my person to ask, but I have asked the Township Committee to redact that article, and I did put a note. And you
Yes, you did, but I think, hopefully I was clear on that. We don't have the authority to redact anything in the newspaper.
Well, if yes, you do, because if something is inappropriate, and if you're laying the can of worms, like, guess what? Kids are going back to school right now. Their safety is at risk. You just opened a can of worms.
I want to be clear for the public and anybody watching at home. The issue with the repeaters and the radios, which for whatever reason, I don't know, I can't go into it, were not programmed to the right channel.
Yes.
That has been addressed and fixed.
Yes, that was a
So
750.
please don't scare parents at home that there's any issue.
Well, no, what I'm scaring, first of all, that 750 should never have been put in the press. I have proof, and I have legal proof from the county. Okay?
I can't comment on that. I don't have an answer. I don't know.
I sent you correspondence. Okay, and second of all, why do you need to air that? I mean, geez, Guy, we had the conversations with regards to the amount of guns in Long Hill Township.
I didn't write the article. Nobody up here wrote the article.
Oh, so where did the information come from?
From the report we've spoken of repeatedly. It's a public document.
The report that was sent from OEM Peoples, that's public?
You've exceeded your time limit, and we've gone over the same topic many times.
Okay, Matt, I appreciate it, and you know I'll be back in touch.
Yes, that's fine.
Okay, but these are my concerns. You know, I do my research.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Marion.
Thank you.
You know, since there's been a lot of discussion over these errors, and it seems that it's something that might be keeping you up at night, Guy, Chief Naga's in the audience right now. Why don't we ask him to come up and tell us?
He's welcome to.
First off, thank you, Committeeman Ray, for all your support and your knowledge on the police department as prior police liaison. Before I go any further, Mayor Dorsey, you've been involved in the communication with Labor Council, and so have you been, Committeeman Lavender. Is this in compliance with the directive received from your Labor Council as far as the appropriate authority's position on me speaking in public?
Fine, it's fine with me. You have 3 minutes like everybody else.
I'd like to hear your answer, because you have a potential charge of insubordination against me, right? So let's clear that up.
I do?
Your Labor Council alleged to a potential
let's
charge.
be clear about that.
What was that?
Let's be clear about that. I don't.
He says he's acting on your behalf, so I want to make sure that is clear, because I'm not going to face a
There's
charge.
no rights notice. We're not here to discuss
we're not here.
personnel issues.
Anyway, continue.
So we're good to go to talk, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Good 3 minutes
So-
like everybody else, sure.
Am I speaking as a citizen, or am I speaking as chief of police?
Just say what you want to say. Don't worry.
What
about it.
capacity, sir?
You're here as a citizen to air your grievance.
I'm not allowed to discuss matters of police concern. I'm only restricted to speak on matters of public concern.
Speak freely, please.
As chief. Okay. Now we got that cleared up. So a couple of you committee members released that report quickly to independent residents in town. I've received the Oprah requests and the Oprah reports, and it's clear on there that that information should not have been released. I have a concern. You stated you support our officers, everybody in blue back there, but yet you made it a point to release the names of the individual officers who apparently, allegedly, used the radio, the inappropriate radio channel. So you've highlighted personnel issues outside in public by releasing that report directly. As a matter of fact, Committeeman Lavender, you printed a hard copy and handed it out after a meeting. Is that not correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Because you didn't want a trace of electronic communication.
No, that's not true.
Okay, so you printed it out and handed it directly to somebody to get information out to the public, correct?
What we wanted to be clear about were the facts on this, because a lot of the folks in the audience were bringing up things that were not true. We wanted to have the truth out in the public, that's all.
So let me give you a little bit of advice on the truth. You received a report that said there were 750 errors in a 2-month period. Is that not correct?
I'll take your word for it, I'm not looking at it.
You didn't read the report?
I don't have it in front of me, and I don't, how many pages were in that report?
The administrator is on there commenting to Director Peoples over the corrected statement that it's 750 errors in 2 months. Is that not correct? Yes? So during those 750 errors, there was 24 reports that the radio did not function. Yep. Is that not correct? There was 24 errors reported? That's what the report says. So can anybody explain to me how the officers are using the wrong channel, yet only 24 errors were reported? Miscommunication? Anybody bother asking me why that happened?
What did Mr. Peoples tell you?
Director Peoples reported 750 errors using the wrong channel with 24 no-com complaints.
And where were the 750? Were they in the schools?
No, they were not in the schools.
Where were they?
You would have to ask Director Peoples. It's his report. I'm going off of his report. He reported 750 errors over 2 months. Out of those 750 errors, 24 resulted in no comms. That's his report. That's what you were quick to release to the public. You didn't bother asking me what that meant because you wanted to unleash that information as quickly as possible without giving me the credit due to answer your questions. What you will learn tonight is there was constant switchback between a UASI channel and a Police 4 channel. These officers will know exactly what I'm talking about. And if Director Peoples is chatting with any of you right now, feel free to share his commentary on what I'm saying. During this switch-off process between UASI and Police 4, there was constant, and these officers can speak to it because they're the ones out there using it, there was constant direction from the county to switch from UASI to Police 4. What these officers have learned is if they don't get signal under Police 4, they would switch to UASI. UASI is a temporary site set up. I'm not going to state the specific location, but UASI was a temporary site that was set up to help facilitate the coverage issues that we, on a daily basis, encounter. So the use of UASI or P4, Police 4 is our old designated channel, results in the same communication reaching the county. Sometimes UASI works better, sometimes Police 4 works better. These officers are right here, and you can ask any of them. They've learned to try to adapt to the disaster of a communication system that not you, there's a perfect example. That's a tone that says it's not working. I'm not going to say you gentlemen, but I'm going to say you, Committeeman Presersa, signed that contract back in the day knowing that it was a problem. And you did it simply to save $200,000 a year. Now you're risking my life and the lives of these officers and these residents to save $200,000. What's their life worth?
Are you addressing?
What is their life worth?
Are you addressing that comment to Chief Head?
No.
Why not?
Because you were told, you signed the contract.
He was in the room. I didn't sign the contract.
You did
I don't
sign
know
the
who signed
contract.
it. Was it me? Okay, fine, I signed it.
You were the
I
only
wasn't
one here
there.
that signed it.
So how did I sign it?
Your signature's on there.
And that's fine. At the
So-
advice of Chief Hedden, the fire chiefs, the head
Absolutely
of the, OEM director Ken Folger, and the captain of the first aid squad.
Some of the prior chiefs are here. They were not involved in your decision.
They may not have been chief then.
The decision was made to save $200,000. Now, my officers' lives and the lives of these residents are worth more than $200,000 to me, and I will fight for them till the day I die.
And I applaud that. Yes, Jeff.
Joe Ferrandino, 623 Chestnut Street. For the life of me, I can't understand why any of you people want to do this, truthfully. That's heartfelt. God bless you that you have the patience for this. I wouldn't be able to keep my composure. Have you ever heard of a concept called plan, do, check, and adjust? Something that I've found out along the way in business. I make a plan. I execute the plan. The plan doesn't go according to plan. When I check the plan, I adjust the plan. I was around. I seen that communication center in Morristown when I was thinking about getting involved in politics. What's his name? Benani, John Benani took me up there. I was at a class for the polling station. It is like the Starship Discovery. But this is something that the people who founded this great country knew. The more you centralize the control and the control of the operations, the worse it gets. It's like a guy, you're running a company, you got 5 people, you got good control, you know your people, you got your finger on the pulse of the business. When you take that and you go to 15 and 20, and then you got administrators and vice presidents and managers, you lose some of that control. That's what was planned from this communication center going to the county to start with. Nobody knows this town like a dispatcher who works this town. Let's say a police officer who's retired and now they're taking a job as a dispatcher. That person could help those officers know the pitfalls around this town. People at the county don't have a clue. You're just a little blip on a screen like when you played Battleship as a kid. Like I said, I've seen the whole setup. It's phenomenal, but if it doesn't work, the people that'll tell you that it doesn't work are the people that are out there doing their job. And those are the people, after you've made the decision to go with the county and they're telling you it doesn't work, then you need to go back to what does work. That's the adjust part. Same thing now, I heard about this television of the thing here, televised the meetings. I remember way back when Dennis Sandow sat there, I got all the stuff I had to get. It seems like we threw money at a problem. The problem didn't get better, it got worse. So back to the adjust part. Maybe it's time to go back to what did work, get rid of all the fancy stuff that doesn't work, and put somebody in charge who takes pride in doing what that stuff is supposed to do. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Joe.
Good evening, Olena Zaruba, 1938 Valley Road. I'm going to touch a little bit different topic. I'm not sure if this will be appropriate here, but I was suggested to come here for help. We rented a storage container because we are Ukrainian people, and we are trying to help people from Ukraine. and we are collecting some clothes, we are collecting some donations, and we are buying medications and all the stuff to help people over there. And we were told, I really apologize, we are in the town just for 4.5 years, and we didn't know we had to get a permit for that. And I found a letter in my door saying that we have to remove it. And I'm just here asking you for courtesy to leave it up to October 6th, which was original lease by October 6th. I just don't want to lose, this money, because every penny is matter in the situation with the people in Ukraine. So just please help with that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I believe you have what, permission to have it on your property, extended it to October 6th, correct? So you want us to extend it to October 6th?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
I'm fine
That's
with it.
fine.
We can do that?
Yeah. No
That
problem.
would
By the way,
be a-
thank you for what you're
Yes,
doing.
thank you.
Thank you. That would
you
be
so
a,
much.
The people of Yukon.
Yes,
Thank
keep
you.
fighting. Good job.
that would be a yes.
Megan, anybody online?
I don't see anyone, Mayor.
Thank you. Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.